It's a secret, but it's an open secret. It's plain to all, but only a few see and understand. Then don't you understand this parable? Then how will you understand any parable? It's a secret, but it's an open secret. It's plain to all, but only a few see and understand. Then Jesus said to them, don't you understand this parable? Then how will you understand any parable? It's a secret, but it's an open secret. It's plain to all, but only a few see and understand. Then don't you understand this parable? Then how will you understand any parable? It's a secret, but it's an open secret. It's plain to all, but only a few see and understand. Then Jesus said to them, don't you understand this parable? Then how will you understand any parables?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Welcome back to a McMo stream. We are virtually not alone here on the mcmidweek shuffle. It's been a while. It's been like maybe like over a week or something. I had a TLC wedding to attend this weekend. Lots of thoughts, lots of memories shared on my weekend in Atlanta with some of the TLC bros. We were at old Parlato's wedding, and it was a glorious time. I was a witness to Parlato making a covenant with his wife before God and before the church, and it was a totally positive experience, folks. I also got the pleasure of DJing the reception. So, got to slip in some Protestant mind control during the Catholic dancing section. JK, I didn't do that. Just the hits, folks. Just played the hits. Got the people moving and grooving. And Skank's already getting us into the meat and potatoes of today, because if you're tapped into Christian YouTube, you've seen that there's quarreling afoot. There's been big things in the news this week for enjoyers of Christianity, you could say. And so you can see them down below. You can see on the scrolling thing right there. What does it say? It says topics for the day, and the day is Wednesday, May 27th, 2026. Topics for the day: the encyclical, Pope Leo's first encyclical, and I'm claiming the title of this phenomenon. It is officially the Ortho Bro Wars of 2026. It is officially the Ortho Bro Wars of 2026. And hopefully, time permitting, we'll get into that as well. But wanting this to feel more like a call-in show, I do want to play a little bit of the encyclical. Let me know in the comments if you've read the encyclical. If you've read the encyclical, tell me what you thought about it. I think that there was maybe that's what we should do first, is a kind of encyclical summary. And I listened to the audiobook, ironically read by an AI, yesterday or the day before. An encyclical is a fun word. My dog's freaking out because there was a baby bear across the street earlier. When you're in the Appalachians, you see baby bears, and my dog wants to make sure that they know that the inside of our house is not a place that would be safe for them. And he lets them know that by barking continuously. And on the one hand, it's very annoying, and I would like to train him not to do that. But then on the other hand, it's kind of like, hey, man, he's looking at an apex predator, and he's just letting you know, like, hey, this guy's creeping in on us. And so I can't fault him for that. But yeah, we're looking for encyclical stuff. Let's see. Skank says, would you rather be drafted to fight the bombers, the boomers, I'm guessing he meant to say, the boomers war or the Ortho Bro Wars? I'd rather not be drafted into either war. I'd like to kind of take a bit of a, I'd like to do my best to embody and portray, even-handedness, and I'd like to actively suppress my biases to a certain extent. I'd like to play the role of unbiased referee, in these trying times where we've got anti-AI encyclicals and ortho bros and Muslim apologists fighting. I don't know. They might not be best categorized as Muslim apologists. We'll get to that, folks. We'll get to that. In the meantime, why don't we take a quick breather? Let's listen to the last beat we made on on a chill stream. I'd like to hear what we were cooking up last time, and I need a little bit of time to get this video up for you guys. In the meantime, let me know, have you read the encyclical? We're going to start with the encyclical. Have you read this new message from the Pope to the world on AI and the church's role in putting forth the dignity of the human being in the face of what you might call the indignity of AI? And that's a line by me, not by the encyclical, but I'm prone to dropping bars, so what can you do? Anyway, this is from the last chill stream. Let's take a listen. I'll be right back. And we're back. Sorry for the hard cut, but not really sorry. Okay. We are about to watch a reaction by a priest to the new encyclical. But I basically got two goals today with these two topics. I want to give a broad lay of the land as I see it. The old, was it Paul Harvey? And that's the way I saw it, or whatever his catchphrase was. I'm a child of Paul Harvey. What can I say? I loved Paul Harvey when I was like a kid. Paul Harvey sounds like a public library smells. And maybe some of you have not been to a good public library. Maybe all your public libraries stink. But the ones I've been to, pretty sick. And they have a certain smell, and that smell smells like Paul Harvey sounds. Okay, and all that to say, two goals today. I want to give you the general lay of the land, and then I really want us to, if we can get to it, to look at some of maybe the dynamics, maybe some of the meta dynamics involved. We'll see if our collective cognitive abilities can reach that high. I believe in us, but not that much. If we're to get there, we're going to need the Lord's help. But regardless, we can do our best, we can relax, and we can have a good time. Thanks for being here with me, folks. This is definitely feeling VNA today for some reason. And so thank you for making me feel VNA. And with that, we will listen to this priest's reaction, and I think it'll serve as kind of a summary as well to the encyclical. And so that'll be nice. And in the meantime, I will be working on a beat, so we should have a beat for the end of this show too, and that'll be good as well. So without further ado, Here is the video. Priest reacts to Pope Leo's AI encyclical with Father Gregory Pine. Phlebas is chatting. Thanks for being here, Phlebas.
Talking about Magnifica Humanitas, the first encyclical of Pope Leo XIV, which just came out. Woohoo. So the subtitle of the document is On Safeguarding the Human Person in the Time of Artificial Intelligence. In this video, we're going to talk about, first, what is an encyclical? Second, what are some recent encyclicals so we can situate this encyclical? Third, what's the overall vision of the encyclical? Fourth, what is a more detailed account of the encyclical? We'll go through the kind of headings and what's covered under each section.
What do we think about speeding this guy up a little bit? Anybody opposed to speeding him up?
Okay, first, what is an encyclical? An encyclical is basically a circular letter of the Holy Father. Traditionally, it is addressed to all of the patriarchs, primates, archbishops, and bishops of the Universal Church in communion with the Apostolic See. Lately, it's been addressed to the bishops, priests, deacons, consecrated persons, and lay faithful. Basically, it's addressed to the whole church. And it's the type of way in which the Holy Father, in solemn state, addresses his flock. Okay, so for context, John Paul II reigned gloriously from 1978 to 2005, so whatever, 26, 27 years. He published 14 encyclicals. You're probably familiar with some of them. And then Benedict XVI reigned from 2005 to 2013, 8 glorious years, and he published 3 encyclicals. You can probably name all of them. Okay, I'll do it for you. Deus Caritas Est, Spe Salve.
I cannot, in fact, name any of them.
And then Pope Francis reigned gloriously from 2013 to 2025, so 12 years there. He published 4 encyclicals. Lumen Fidei, which a lot of people say that Benedict XVI wrote most of, and then Laudato Si, Fratelli Tutti, and De Lex Nos. Now, for further context, Leo XIV is the 14th. What about Leo XIII, the guy who really got after it encyclical-wise? So, man, I'm cracking myself up. All right, so he reigned gloriously from 1878 to 1903, so 25 years. He published 88 encyclicals. Haha, let's go. We're just trying to say here that an encyclical is a big deal. It tends to be like epical in tone, like in the world. And it's trying to address the whole world on an issue of universal concern. Okay, so then what is that concern when it comes to Magnifica Humanitas? What we have here is a kind of Christian humanism in conversation with contemporary developments in technology and other things besides. The Holy Father is applying Catholic social teaching, which we'll define soon, to questions prompted by artificial intelligence. So it is, on his part, a conscious contribution to Catholic social teaching or to Catholic social doctrine. You might be asking yourself, what is Catholic social doctrine? Great question. Well, we can root Catholic social doctrine in the scriptures, in the church's tradition, in the writings of the fathers and medieval theologians, and more modern contemporary contributors to the tradition. It's the type of thing that saints and mystics, all Christian persons.
Okay, so we have my first wanting to pause moment. This will become a big deal if you do end up reading the encyclical, which I listened to an AI read it to me, so I basically read it. You could summarize the entire encyclical, kind of like he just did, as Pope Leo applying Catholic social doctrine to AI in the year 2026. That kind of is maybe what he's doing in some way. And I'd love for any of the Catholics out there to correct me on this. Because again, I'm not a Catholic, but I am trying my best to be fair and point out what is interesting to me. And so this Catholic social doctrine, quote unquote, is, well, it seems to be kind of characteristic of the strain in the Catholic Church that is maybe more characterized by Latin America, Germany maybe. These are kind of strains in Catholicism that some people would see as quote unquote left-leaning or liberal. And this topic of Catholic social doctrine, in my experience, and this isn't for every single Catholic I've interacted with, but it does seem, basically like the liberal Catholics really love it. The conservative Catholics, the traditional Catholics, they seem to kind of want to ignore it would probably be too strong, but there wants to be a kind of, yes, this is a part of the church, but it's not any more important than any of the other doctrines or dogmas of the church, and so it should not be given this kind of place of privilege. But we've had 2 popes now who kind of come from this South American Latin. That's funny. The popes were Latin. Did you realize that, folks? The popes, they're using Latin, and they're coming from the Latin-influenced global South. And that was a good reminder that President Foxman gave in a group chat the other day, which was, this, you got to remember when you're reading this, that this is it's given to the world, the whole world. What up, Toon G? Welcome, sir. We're diving into the encyclical. Have you read it? What are your thoughts? But yeah, this topic of, and I wish I knew more about the specifics of Catholic social doctrine, but I assume it has a focus on attending to the needs of the poor, the least of these. It is that kind of line of Christian life that is easily confused with a type of Western liberalism valorizing the victims as moral and ethical exemplars based on their position within power dynamics rather than their inherent virtue. And that is a long-winded way of saying that Catholic social doctrine is a somewhat hot topic from the outside looking in, within the kind of Roman Catholic world, because it seems like for some people it's very important and for some people it's less important. But that kind of focusing on the dignity of the human individual kind of brings up a lot of what's interesting to me about the encyclical. What was interesting to me, and you'll hear him explain this, but he mentioned the Catholic social teaching, which I would love to hear more about, especially from our semiotic friends. Secondly is the kind of humanism that is promoted in the encyclical. He references it's very kind of pro-democracy, pro the individual, pro freedom of thought. Yeah, pick and choose. Welcome, brother. It's very pro. There's a Catholic. My map of pick and choose is JD, if I remember correctly, is that he would probably be a Catholic who would love the kind of Catholic social doctrine. Not to say that you're necessarily a liberal Catholic, JD, but I think you get what I mean. So yeah, those three things were very interesting to me. The kind of humanism / almost existentialism, but you could also just think of it as kind of very American. It's kind of like the first American Pope has a little bit of the Declaration of Independence in his Consciousness Congress. But then thirdly, I can't remember if I got my numbers mixed up now, but yeah, the Catholic social doctrine, the kind of small L liberalism of the individual human person, yeah. So let's just keep going. Let's just keep going, folks. Thank you all for being here.
Of all times and places have some share in, but we think about it especially as stemming from the publication of Rerum Novarum on May 15th, 1891. So that was during the reign of Leo XIII, and he was addressing himself specifically to the social question or the worker question. So with the rise of the Industrial Revolution, capitalism, socialism by way of response, Marxism, communism, he addressed himself to the plight especially of the worker. Since Rerum Novarum, the Holy Father has often commented on this tradition, or he's made his contribution to this tradition. So you have documents which are published on the anniversary of Rerum Novarum, often enough at 10-year intervals. Rerum Novarum.
Okay, sorry. I'm just gonna dissect this because this is the second time through. This is more interesting to me. So did you catch that this kind of is in line with this tradition of speaking to the world in somewhat the world's terms, and that makes sense of a lot of the encyclical as well. There's large deference shown to quote unquote the world in contradiction, in distinction from the church, right? Like, I think one of the chapters is called something like the competencies of the church and the world, respectively, or something like that. And so there is this church-world divide that's kind of held up. But there is this kind of view that the church is meant to serve the world. And so that's what gives the encyclical, I think, its Yeah, maybe that's a good way to understand it, is that it's kind of trying to respond to the world in the world's terms. So with the Marxism problem, you've got the, what was it called? It was already in the hive mind earlier. Let's see. Rerum Novarum. That's right. Skank with the 10 points. Rerum Novarum. Actually, that should be more like 100 points. Oh yeah, that was another point with JD putting, or pick and choose. What, I don't know which one to call you, pick and choose. I should not dox you here, but pick and choose. Yeah, not only did it kind of talk about distribute. So if you want to talk isms, it didn't. Distributism is one thing, but it also talked about subsidiarity and redistribution. You know, both of those were very interesting to me as well. It like kind of said both of those verbatim. Like subsidiarity, it had a large section on, and redistribution. And so, yeah, I think that maybe makes it understandable is the idea that the church, just like it felt the need to speak to workers in the time of the rise of Marxism as a kind of oncoming ideology, I think that it sees the church maybe sees AI. And when I say the church, when I'm thinking as a Catholic or trying to think with the Catholics, I just mean the Catholic Church. But, you know, we'll save the one true church debates for later when we get into the Ortho Bros war. Or the Ortho Bro wars. Singular Ortho Bro? Plural wars? Or plural Ortho Bros? Singular war? Let me know in the comments which has a better ring to it. You know, we're trying to get this name off the ground marketing wise. So we really need to get the details right here. But we'll get to that. So yeah, when I say the church, I just mean the Catholic Church in this section. Tunji offering a new name, Catho Bros. Do we have we call them semiotic bros, I guess, but actually you might be considered a semiotic bro to some, Tunji. So you know, these labels are squishy. We gotta play jazz with these labels, you know. It's the war of the bros, the bros war. You guys are doing good. Okay, so this is the encyclical. It's the church. It's the Pope kind of speaking to the world in the world's terms on the dangers of AI and the importance of the dignity of not humanity as a category necessarily, but the individual human person. And so there's elements of humanism, there's elements of, redistribution, and democracy is praised. The weirdest part is when it kind of praises the UN a little bit, but I think that what it was doing, the encyclical praises what's good in what the UN purports to be doing and how it purports to be serving the world. But the UN, of course, does not serve the world. It wishes to rule the world. And so it should definitely be, I don't think it should be trusted, is my basic take. You know, hopefully this doesn't get taken off of YouTube for that hot take, but we'll see. Okay, so I'm going to let this play a little bit more. I think I've given enough of my thoughts to it. So I'm going to let this play, and I'm going to work on the beat. Feel free to light up the hive mind. Feel free to donate to my Ko-Fi. We are really out here virtually not alone today, folks, and that feels good. I'm digging it.
It was 1891, Quadragesimo Annum was 1931, and then you have Mater et Magistra in 1961, Octogesima Adveniens in 1971, and Laborum Exercens in 1981, and then Centesimus Annus in 1991. So this document is consciously written on May 15th, the same date on which Rerum Novarum was written, 135 years after the fact. So this is the 135th anniversary of Rerum Novarum, and Pope Leo XIV is marking it by this document, Magnifica Humanitas. And he says explicitly, I therefore wish to add my own voice to this living tradition, that being the tradition of Catholic social doctrine. Okay, so what is he addressing himself to? He says he's addressing himself to the new things, and that is a conscious callback to Rerum Novarum, which is speaking of the new things. The new things being digitization, artificial intelligence, robotics. Okay, so with that basic vision, then let's get into the details of the document. The document is divided into an introduction and a conclusion, which frame 5 chapters. So let's just bop through each and cover key points. Now, mind you, there's a lot of repetition in the document, so I'm going to kind of edit for repetition so that there's less in this here short exposition. But obviously, if you want to know the goods, then you should read the document. I don't know why I stress those 2 words. Keep going, Father Gregory. So the introduction begins with 2 biblical images. The first being the Tower of Babel, and the other being the rebuilding of the walls of Jerusalem by Nehemiah. So he writes, humanity created by God in all its grandeur, Magnifica Humanitas, is today facing a pivotal choice, either to construct a new Tower of Babel or to build a city in which God and humanity dwell together. So he notes that in Babel, those architects, those builders, attempt.
Okay, yeah, this is another big aspect of I couldn't help myself. This is another big aspect of the text, which is this distinction between the Tower of Babel and the rebuilding of the walls of Jerusalem by Nehemiah. Now, unless you're a Protestant, I don't expect you to remember, well, honestly, either of them. I'm just kidding. The text of and the story of Nehemiah is almost, you couldn't think of a better text for explaining subsidiarity, or even a kind of, you might could read it as a kind of conservative pulling, a conservative argument for personal responsibility and the need to take care of yourself, your family, your home, your neighborhood, your city, your state, your country, and so on and so forth. And the basic idea is that the people of Israel are in the process of coming back home from exile, for which God exiled them for worshiping idols. So remember, we should fear God in this whole thing too, because that is, lest we forget, if we don't fear God, we're just going to be fools and idiots. So if we fear God, though, we are at least on track towards wisdom. It's the first step. If you don't fear God, you can't get any wisdom. So let's at least acknowledge that the Israelites were punished for their idolatry, just like we should be punished for our idolatry. And just like we should repent, the Israelites repented, and so they're coming back, but they need to rebuild the wall. How are they going to do this? It's a massive engineering and construction problem. Well, Nehemiah gets a good idea. This is the McMo retelling. Nehemiah prays and he fasts, and he makes sure to do everything on the up and up, spiritually, culturally, civilizationally. And he comes up with this idea, or he's given it by the Lord. I don't remember which. I mean, probably if he comes up with it, it's given to him by the Lord. So it's all, it's all grace, folks. But then the idea he gets for rebuilding the wall is that all of the families that live on the wall, live at the city border, are responsible for their section of the wall. And basically the people of Jerusalem come together and they each take care of their section of the wall. And it's one of those stories where the Israelites, for all of their stiff-neckedness, there's these times when they really need to come together, like the Exodus. It's all right, folks, lock in. We got to put blood on the door. We've got to do it. Say what you want about the Jays. When it's time to lock in, they lock in. And so that's kind of the story of Nehemiah. They all lock in. They build their section of the wall. They take personal responsibility. And Jerusalem, the walls of Jerusalem are rebuilt. Society and culture can thrive because civilization has been cultivated. These are all, analogies and metaphors. We should, if you're talking about the Canada-American wall, Phoebus, then sign me up. I don't want any of you polite MFers down here anyway. All right, so that's a little. If that was a little, give you guys an idea of what Nehemiah is about. The Tower of Babel, famously, Nimrod or whatever. Well, that's the thing too. If you want to take the Sunday school version minus Enoch and tell it, that's one way to tell the story. There's another way to tell the story where you've got the Nephilim are, and I didn't even think we would get to the book of Enoch in this stream, but here we are. All roads lead to Enoch apparently. But basically, the people build this tower to get to God. Arrogantly, they think if they just build a tower tall enough, they'll get to God. Similar to the Jews' idolatry. We can relate, but also we can learn. And so they try to do this in their own power, and God's like, that's a bad idea. You guys are getting a little too full of yourselves. We need to give you all different languages so that you don't understand one another, so that you don't get, too far over your skis, And it's, for a Christian absurdist, it's a very interesting story because God comes down to bring clarity? No. He comes down to confound. He comes down to break up the unity, the one world language. He says, that's enough of that. Let's get it. Let's get each other talking their own languages, okay? Let's make sure that however many thousands of years in the future, you could have English hip hop, and you could have French hip hop, and you could have something that I recently found, which I think is Iranian rap battles, basically, or Palestinian rap battles. Jacob, who I was at the Parlato wedding with, Parlato always says Jacob is a minch, and once you've hung out with him in real life, you'll see that it is true. So yeah, good times. Nobody hate crimed Jacob, so that was also a relief. But yeah, I recently found these Palestinian. Actually, let me see if I can find the Palestinian beatboxers, because that would be pretty funny. But it's nice that we have different languages. And I think that the Tower of Babel folks, I think they got a little over their skis, and so it was good for God to kind of come down and tell them what's what. But so that's the encyclical, right? Is thematically or literarily, he's wanting you to kind of see why he wants to make that distinction between Nehemiah and the Tower of Babel. So he wants you to think of AI, if it's this thing that like humanity is building that's going to give us the power of the gods. That's evil. That's Tower of Babel. And so how do we combat that? Well, we have to take that mindset of the Jerusalems when Nehemiah came back, and we all have to work on our turf. We have to build our wall. And we have to trust that the people around us are all taking care of their wall. And so we like the Jewish people have to lock in. That's the basic message of the, if you wanted to bring it down to my IQ, that's what it would be, right? The people of the Lord need to lock in, because there's an enemy at the gate, and its name is AI, and it wants to eat our children. So, light fare on a chill stream. We're keeping it chilled. It is what it is.
To make a name for themselves, to guarantee stability for themselves, but they did so without reference to God. Whereas in the case of Jerusalem, rebuilt by Nehemiah, you have a community who is willing to fast, to pray, to intercede, to do what it takes to get in right relation to God, and to share the work committed to them, such that they can actually build a lasting city, one that leads to righteousness, or one in which righteousness can abide. So there's a focus the document Integral Human Development, which we've heard a lot about since Populorum Progressio, another document of Pope Paul VI, published in 1967. And the idea here is that we're not going to make progress as a human community as a mere matter of course, or something that happens automatically or inexorably. So we have to be about the serious business of discernment, and we'll talk about further principles besides. All right, so technology itself needs to be judged, it needs to be regulated, and it needs to be used well, lest it dehumanize us. That's the basic concern here. So we talked about the contemporary setting as the kind of construction site of our time, where we seek to build this lasting city unto, the glory of God and the salvation of souls. So then chapter 1 is entitled A Dynamic Approach Faithful to the Gospel. Here you have commentary on how the church interacts with the modern world or the contemporary world, and there's a sense of the contemporary world's competence, that the church doesn't want to involve herself in things for which it doesn't have competence. That's poor formulation. Let me read you something. A church that walks alongside humanity, recognizing the autonomy of earthly realities and the distinction between ecclesial and political communities. So you can think back traditionally to this two-sword theory, that the church has her authority and that the state has her authority, and that there's meant to be a mutual enrichment of one and the other. So the church is meant to exercise a certain influence on society, not in that she was founded for that purpose, but in that she has this prophetic mission, and her testimony is addressed to society for its renewal, right, for its salvation. The church doesn't want to end up sounding anti-science, anti-progress, anti-world, so there's some careful qualifications here in this first chapter. And then we hear him describe Catholic social teaching or Catholic social doctrine, not just a bunch of ad hoc pronouncements on this thing or that thing or the other thing, whether social or political or economic. Rather, he's going to direct our attention to the principles that guide the interpretation of events and sustain an evangelical understanding of what's happening now. He describes it as a foundation for collective discernment, a theology of communion in history. And then he'll go through a development of Catholic social teaching, and he'll focus on some of the documents that I already mentioned, and then pepper in further documents like non-anniversary documents, highlighting like Vatican II, so Gaudium et Spes being big, Dignitas Humani being big, Pacem in Terris, Populorum Progressio, which I made mention of. So there have been a number of documents, and we can think recently of Caritas in Veritate by Benedict XVI, Laudato Si, Fratelli Tutti, as conscious contributions to Catholic social doctrine. Chapter 2 is entitled Foundations and Principles of the Social Doctrine of the Church. We're going to treat the things which function as
I thought chapter 2 was when he really got cooking.
A principle is just that from
chapter 1 was kind of a lot of throat clearing.
So what we're talking about here is like the headwaters of Catholic social doctrine, which flow into the different currents of our contemporary lives. It refers first to the foundations, namely like the dignity of the human person, and then the value of human rights, and then it'll talk about the principles. They're referring to the common good, subsidiarity with mention of participation, solidarity, and then it picks out another one, social justice. So if you've read the compendium of the social doctrine of the church, you'll recognize this list. Typically we'll go dignity of the human person, common good, universal destination of goods, subsidiarity, participation, and solidarity. Those 6 come in for considerable commentary, but these other ones they feature in.
I want to bring up the list again.
Participation and solidarity. Those 6.
Okay. Catholic social doctrine. Number 1. I don't know if these are rank ordered. Like, I don't know if dignity of the human person is, like, more important than the common good, for instance. It seems like that makes sense to me. The one that I don't understand at all, and I was struggling, actually, every time it was mentioned, was that third one, the universal destination of goods. Does anybody know what the universal destination of goods is? I don't want to Google it, but I will if I have to. And then it's subsidiarity, participation, and solidarity. So what is that universal destination of goods? In my mind, that would be something like, from dust we come and to dust we return. You know, like, that would be the universal destination of all things. There's also a foot in the door here for universalism of one type or the other, as Skank makes clear. What's the universal destination of all goods? Okay. Nobody's saying anything, so I'm gonna look it up. Actually, in the meantime, why don't we check out ball battles? This is that Palestinian rap battle I was talking about. I've been obsessed with this recently. On when I've shamefully dipped my toe into the short form content waters. Usually, tempted there by none other than our very fearless leader himself, PVK. But sometimes, the algo gives as much as it takes. So I was delighted to find this. So enjoy this with me as I look up what the universal, I forgot what it was already, the universal destination of goods, what that means on the other side of this Palestinian rap battle.
يا سردين بهاوية على الوش وجابك يا سردين أنا يا شاعرنا بالجموع تتحداني ممنوع اللي بغني له بأسبوع وبده عندك مسامر العادة حيط بيتشعبط والليالي بتتحوط موعدكم ما يتخربط لو يمشي من فوق العجين رجال الهم نادينا عزوتنا وأهالينا غنينا أغانينا أو نرضي كل الحاضرين غنينا للغنية أو كرمال الفهماوية I should translate these for you guys. You might not be able to see it. Okay. Abu Muhammad and Abu Shadahi. It's kind of hard to keep up with them, actually. Well, we'll try another one. So let me share this tab instead. We'll take a quick 7-minute detour. In the meantime, Marcher, tell us what, signs in the desk, tell us what the universal destination of goods is. On this stage, our Zajal becomes a theme for us all. That actually rhymes in English. With our distinguished guests. Our garden is lovely and blessed. You guys see that? That's how it starts. Are they gonna get nasty? I think he wrote this beforehand. I'm taking this one off. The other ones are more obviously freestyled. Yeah, Tunji knows what it's all about. No, it is rap. It is rap, Jacob. That just shows you don't know what rap is. That's fine. You're an Iranian Jew. There's nobody expects you to know what rap is. It's fine. The universal destination of goods means we all go to Disneyland? I don't know what that... You've not brought clarity, but confusion! Alright, I pulled it up. Let's see what the AI says. No, actually, let's go to www.vatican.va. Oh, horrible UI. The Holy See's UI is impossible.
Catholics, please do something about this. How do I... Maybe I can, if I change the... Alright, I'm just going to refresh this page. I can't see the first couple paragraphs. This is frustrating. Okay, I'm going to do my best here. 2402, in the beginning God entrusted the earth and its resources to the common stewardship of mankind to take care of them, master them by labor, and enjoy their fruits. The goods of creation are destined for the whole human race. However, the earth is divided up among men to assure the security of their lives, endangered by poverty and threatened by violence. The appropriation of property is legitimate for guaranteeing the freedom and dignity of persons and for helping each of them to meet his basic needs and the needs of those in his charge. It should allow for a natural solidarity to develop between men. Okay. So the universal destination and the private... So the universal destination is in connection with the private ownership of goods. So this has directly to deal with private ownership. Okay, so you're seeing, maybe I'm seeing how this is kind of connected into that the Catholic social doctrine having to do with the dignity of humanity. But the fact that it is and the private ownership of goods, I think for me that kind of is that signals that it also kind of it is probably in some ways a kind of clarifying on the apparent divide between the problems of private ownership as maybe seen through a Marxist critique, while also kind of upholding something that the Marxists will never understand, which is that if you want stealing to be bad, then you have to have private ownership. So basically the Ten Commandment, the commandment that says thou shalt not steal, kind of assumes that private ownership of goods is a good. So I wonder how I did with a little bit more serious philosophy there. I'm sure the hive mind will let me know. Marjorie's saying it just means private ownership, while good isn't absolute. Amen. Yep, Phoebus is more conservative than the magisterium. All right, let's see. I'll read the rest of them. The right to private property acquired by work or received from others by inheritance or gift does not do away with the original gift of the earth to the whole of mankind. The universal destination of goods remains primordial, even if the promotion of the common good requires respect for the right of private property and its exercise. So private property and its exercise. So that's capitalism, basically, is private property and its exercise, and essentially, almost. So it's kind of like capitalism okay, but don't get it twisted. 2404, in his use of things, man should regard the external goods he legitimately owns not merely as exclusively to himself, but common to others also, in the sense that they can benefit others as well as himself. The ownership of any property makes its holder a steward of providence, with the task of making it fruitful and communicating its benefits to others, first of all, his family. So there you go. I mean, that's pretty clear and that's pretty solid. It'd be hard to argue with that. That there's some, and I think that there's obviously something here for the right-leaning person and the left-leaning person to kind of grab onto as a quality critique of the excesses of the side that they would not include themselves on. The ownership of any property makes its holder a steward of providence. That's a great line. That's a great line. With the task of making it fruitful and communicating its benefits to others, first of all, his family. And so they slide in that first of all his family thing too. And there you have the kind of subsidiarity idea. So not NGL, the Catholics are cooking, y'all. NGL, the Catholics are cooking. Breaking news, breaking news. The Catholics are cooking. Seeking Genuine says, it speaks to the idea that you can raise all your food and it's yours, but doesn't mean you shouldn't share it with your community or common man if they are starving. I think that's absolutely right. Phlebas even kind of agreeing in an odd, twisted way. I'm not my own, said it better. Okay, that's how Phlebas gives a compliment, if you guys were wondering. Got to get him where you can fit him in. Get him in where you can fit him in, Phlebas. I hear you, big dog. All right. So we've covered the Palestinian battle raps. You know, that's not a pro-Palestinian dog whistle either, Jacob. Don't get me confused. You know, it's okay if they like to, you know, joyfully and joyously insult each other in the form of spoken verse. And if you call that singing, well, that's actually fine. Yeah. Oh, it's actually communism. Okay, so you're taking an anti-Catholic social doctrine. You might need to explain your position further, Signs in the Dust. Sometimes the layers of irony get too thick. You need maybe a private DM from somebody being like, what's your actual opinion on this so that I know whether I should be mad or not. Which I'm not going to be mad either way. I'm honestly curious because I don't think that the encyclicals are ex cathedra as it goes. But if there's... I would love to hear any Catholic's opinion on it because I've only heard, you know, some YouTube stuff. But there were certainly some things that surprised me. So with that, we'll keep going. We now understand universal destination of goods. Is that basically this is all God's stuff, and He may be only giving it to you so that you would give it all away for Him. And that's connected to subsidiarity, and it's connected to participation. Solidarity is one of the ones that kind of surprised me because of its somewhat woke valence. But I don't remember if he covers it in this kind of review video. But it's a word that definitely comes up in the encyclical quite a bit, is solidarity. But we'll continue on here.
Come in for considerable commentary, but these other ones they feature in. So yeah, a somewhat novel arrangement, but no revolution happening here, something in continuity with what has gone before. When he talked about social justice in particular, he says, social justice is therefore characterized by the capacity of a social, economic, and political order to allow everyone, particularly the weakest, to live a truly dignified life without leaving anyone behind. He has in mind here the fact that you'll have structures of sin which crop up throughout our human history, which is to say like deeply unjust or problematic arrangements in society that need to be addressed, but we can't address them apart from personal conversion working towards institutional change. So social justice in the church's understanding isn't like, you know, burn down society. It's not just a matter of institutional change, it's a matter of conversion, you know, personal conversion and communal conversion. And again, he'll mention here this promise of integral human development as both a duty and a right. All right, so then chapter 3, which is kind of the heart of the matter, talks about technology and dominance. It goes on to describe itself as the grandeur of humanity in light of the promises of AI. So again, a largely positive vision in the sense that we're looking to the grandeur of humanity. So we have in mind the dignity of the human person, rights and duties attendant upon that dignity, the promise of humanity as it concerns, you know, like the glory of God and the salvation of souls. But there's also a somewhat negative vision in that we recognize that with these technological advances, our humanity is at risk, and that we lack the power to navigate these things when left to our own devices because we tend to be selfish, right? We tend to be bent in on ourselves. So he alerts us to the kind of prevailing technocratic paradigm. When we begin to govern our lives on the logic of efficiency, control, and profit, there are going to be certain human factors which are left out of the equation, and we as a result will suffer. When technology becomes the standard, then it begins to dictate to us what matters, rather than having a sense of what matters and then employing the technology to the end of the upbuilding or the edification of the kingdom of God. So when the technology begins to dictate the terms, it's like, oh, we got to keep advancing the technology. We got to keep progressing with the technology. Then we just become cogs in the machine or cogs in the wheel. And then there's a real risk there of like exploitation, just being ground under, chewed up, and spit out. So he alerts us to the fact that artificial intelligence can lead to the spreading of this technocratic paradigm. And as a result of which, it requires careful discernment on the...
That is a good point of clarification, I think. In my reading, the text was not saying like AI bad per se in and of itself. It's that the AI we have right now is parasitical to the human being. It degrades, in its use, it degrades the human person. That was kind of my understanding. All right. Well, at least I know how serious Marcher is being now, and I appreciate the level. I appreciate the level of seriousness with which Marcher is taking this. It is perfect. Thank you very much. We will still, nevertheless, pursue truth even as fools.
The part of us, the human community. It's practitioners. We need to recognize that this tool, designed by us, shaped by us, programmed by us, is not necessarily neutral. All right, so it can be programmed in one way or another, better ways or worse ways. It may bear the bias of those who program it. It can also kind of reflect back on us things that we need to be cognizant of. Like if it makes life really easy, then we got to be cognizant of the fact that we're getting addicted to easy life. Or if it would seem to communicate in interpersonal terms, we need to be conscious of the fact that it's not a replacement for genuine interpersonal communion. So there's ways in which the tools themselves can lead to the undermining of our humanity, and we need to be cognizant of that. So the document calls for responsibility, transparency, which is to say, like, what's actually going on here? You know, we have some sense as to the program, as to the algorithm, as to how like stochastic processes of machine learning work by backpropagation, but a lot of it is obscure to us. So we need to invest and we need to inquire and we need to actually know what it is that we're dealing with. So he says, we cannot be satisfied with merely calling for the moralization of machines, the so-called alignment of AI with human values, without also having the courage to insist on a further condition, the possibility of openly discussing the ethical frameworks involved and subjecting them to shared standards of social justice. One thing that he says throughout the document is that we need to quote unquote focus on disarmament, which is to say we need to free this whole process from the appearance of competition, like armed competition. He'll write, to disarm means discrediting the assumption that technical power automatically confers the right to govern. The disarm does not mean rejecting technology, but preventing it from dominating humanity. It means freeing technology from monopolistic control and opening it to discussion and debate, therefore making it human-friendly and restoring it to the plurality of human cultures and ways of life. There's a real drive to...
Okay, so there you can see too the kind of, it's a very... You don't get the sense from the encyclical that the church's hair is on fire and they're very, very, very worried about AI. It's a pretty steady-handed approach, in my opinion. And at the same time, there is this element that I mentioned earlier of, and I wonder if some of the Catholics would see it the same way. It seems like the church is trying to speak to the world on the world's terms. And so it's kind of using this idea of yeah, I guess I'm still grappling with the way it uses so many things that would be kind of left-wing coded in my mind, whether I agree with them or not, would be left-wing coded in my mind. And it kind of puts them forward in a way. This is how I said it to other people, and I think that this gets at it by offending the most amount of people, but you kind of have to know who I'm talking about. But I could see someone accusing the encyclical of a type of Tim Keller third wayism, right? Where it wants to kind of critique the right, it wants to punch to the right and punch to the left, and wants to kind of make sure that you understand that it is kind of hitting this Aristotelian mean of virtue. As well it should, I'll add. Like, that should be a goal. But it's just interesting to me because I think as a Protestant, you know, from the outside looking in, I forget how prevalent Catholic social doctrine is and how important it is to some people. But yeah, I mean, it just, maybe kudos to the Catholic Church. It does, at least the fact that, from, in my mind, this is somewhat controversial encyclical because of the some of the language it uses. I think I can understand it better by thinking through that route of it's the church speaking to the world on the world's terms, and that the Catholic Church is a diverse intellectual milieu that can kind of grab and take. It could pick and choose, if you will, different parts of its different strands to kind of synthesize a pretty, what I thought in, you know, reflection was a very, very, like, good encyclical. I could see it being a very impactful document in terms of the world stage. But at the same time, yeah, it tripped a couple of my controversy trip lines, you could say. So that's interesting. That's interesting to me. And maybe some Catholics would say it seems like the Catholics in my hive mind are saying that the encyclical was not a surprise. So is it the case that how much of this was like, whoa, I can't believe he said that or did that, or was it kind of pretty straight down the barrel? That would be a good question for the Catholics. And in the meantime, we've got the man, the myth, the legend himself, Luke Whitestone Name Thompson in my hive mind. To what do I owe the pleasure? Holy cow. Luke, I'm sorry, but the other topic that I was going to explore today was the Ortho Bro Wars, which you probably hate, but they are a thing that's going on. And I don't need you to come on and defend orthodoxy or anything like that. We got you, bro. But it is kind of crazy. And I'm trying to get the name out there. I want to claim, I want to plant my flag and claim the terminology of coming up with the terminology, the Ortho Bro Wars of 2026. We are in full-fledged Ortho Bro Wars of 2026. And it's not a question of whether or not we're in them. It's a question of, like, what will we do? Which, to connect it to the encyclical, the Pope did tip the hat to old Tolkien himself, old Gandalf himself, saying, we don't get to choose the time we live in. We just get to choose what we could do with the time that we're lived in that is given to us, that kind of thing. That's a good question. Do we think there will be any orthodox processing of the Catholic encyclical? The Protestant church has reason, Protestant nerds have reason to examine the encyclical, if for no other reason than to find some, non-biblical accretion that will prove the Catholic Church to be built on works righteousness and idolatry of one form or the other. But yeah, maybe, I don't even know if there's a good reason for the Orthodox bros the Ortho bros to, maybe the Ortho bros and the Protestant apologists could actually settle their beef and team up if there was a big enough error in the encyclical. But from my listening, I recommend listening to the AI read the encyclical against AI by the Catholic Church. If you like me lack the attention to sit down or the time for any reason at all, if you think that you're not able to interact with this somehow, well, technology has made it as easy as it'll ever be for you to hear and understand a papal encyclical. And if that doesn't just get you hyped about technology, I don't know what will. Dang. Phlebas never happy with the present, always yearning for the past or the future, says, enough boomer encyclicals. When do we get our first Gen Z encyclical? It's a good question. The first Gen Z Pope is going to be, in my guess would be he's going to be quite based. He's going to be quite based. That would be my guess. Okay, let's finish up. We're only halfway through this video, so this time I really mean it. I am going to let it run a little bit longer because I also need a potty break. So I'm going to let this run, and we're going to watch it together. If you need me to pause it because you think that there's something that needs to be addressed, just type in all caps "pause" in the comments.
Progress, so there's a real drive to improve the technology, and often enough it's profit which is dictating that drive, or it's profit which is in fact driving that impetus. And we need to be conscious of the fact that, like, people are going to suffer as a result of our rapacious greed, or people are going to suffer as a result of the fact that we're not actually thinking about what the technology does to us, provided that we can control it, provided that we can manipulate it, provided that we ourselves can profit from it. So there's a real risk here of losing sight of the human factor to which he is directing our attention. We can't kind of in the process enshrine an anti-human vision as to what constitutes human flourishing, because then we'd just be at cross purposes with ourselves. Also, there are certain assumptions too in this progressive narrative, that is to say the narrative of progress, which seem to be anti-human, like this idea that you can eliminate weakness, or that you can eliminate uncertainty, or that you can exert total control, or you can bring about a time of bounty in which no one will want for anything. Like, a lot of this is end timesy, eschatological in its description, and the fact of the matter is that that's not what Christ did. Like, Christ entered our human condition. He himself had less. He experienced weakness. He suffered. He went through the anguish and agony of a life along the way, and he gave up control. He ceded control. So when the promise of AI advancement begins to sound anti-gospel, that should raise some at least yellow flags, perhaps some red flags for us. We as a human species are not simply to be optimized or maximized.
I couldn't do it. I was still standing here trying to hook up the McMobile so I can keep tabs on you MFers while I go take a potty break. And that was I felt like the encyclical was very much an olive branch designed for, and this may just be because it was written by AI or whatever, because I also saw a Substack that tried to claim that the encyclical itself was written by AI. Neither here nor there. But it did seem a little olive branchy to the potties, especially with the kind of gospel focus that he just brought up, right? That there's a kind of anti-gospel flavor tinge to AI products and AI companies. And this is something Tunji has been on the beat of for a few years now. My guess is that Tunji will probably not find the encyclical goes far enough against AI. That would be my guess. But we'll see. All right, this time I'm going to try to let it play a little longer.
We're to be saved, so we need to be on the lookout for salvation. So in the context of this conversation, he'll talk also about transhumanism and posthumanism, this idea of like advanced humans or human-machine hybrids, but he'll say they effectively amount to an anti-humanism. We need to be willing to operate within limitations, to ourselves undergo the suffering, which is just part and parcel of the human condition, but to bear it up with love, to transform it with love. All right, so chapter 4 then, we are almost at the end, is about safeguarding humanity at a time of transformation, subtitled Truth, Work, and Freedom. So here we focus on the crisis of truth, the crisis of work, and the crisis of freedom. Basic idea is that truth is a common good, and so we should be good stewards of it. So we need to like build up an ecology of communication, be on the lookout for disinformation, especially problematic with non-symbolic AI, which is doing these statistical or probabilistic judgments. So, about hallucinations, stuff like that, but also the way in which the data is marshaled. Slowing it down because it's well edited. We need to be on the lookout. Disinformation, that is. So we need to work towards transparency, safeguard privacy, and then implement a kind of pedagogy or education in the way in which we utilize these tools. Because if kids are exposed to them at a young age, they're just going to get eaten alive. So we need to be good stewards of the technology. Then I'll talk about the value of work. So obviously, AI is putting a lot of people out of their jobs, or it's transforming the workplace, whereas formerly you were a computer programmer, now you're a prompt engineer. So we need to recognize the right and the duty to work, not in the sense that like we are all comrades in the communistic system, but in the sense that like work is a way in which we build out our human dignity. That is to say, it gives us the wherewithal to actually be about our human dignity. So we need to be conscious of the fact that AI can really de-skill us. That is to say, we're going to lose certain human competences if we're not careful. So we should be using it in a way to refine our human agency, not replace our human agency. The last then is protecting freedom against dependencies and commercialization. It alerts us to the fact of digital addiction, the way in which these technologies can exploit weakness and woundedness, the way in which we ourselves can be manipulated and controlled. So we need to be on the lookout as a church, as believers, as people called to live and abide in the civilization of love, to break the chains of new forms of slavery which have cropped up as a result of this. And he takes the opportunity to make a kind of examination of conscience on the part of the church as to the stances that it has and has not taken with respect to slavery. So I'd encourage you to read that part. All right, last chapter, chapter 5, the culture of power and the civilization of love. Civilization of love, we get that language from St. John Paul II, Centesimus Annus. Basically, we have here on the surface of the earth an opportunity for encounter and mutual care. So here he talks a lot about war, okay, and the way in which weapons can be made more deadly, lethal, potentially destructive by artificial intelligence. He writes, AI can lower the threshold for the use of force, shield people from responsibility, and foster a culture in which the enemy is reduced to a statistic and the victim to collateral damage. So we need to be on the lookout again against the normalization of war. He especially notes that there's this troubling revival of war as an instrument of international politics, not as a last resort in a defensive position. So as like the limitations on war have been eroded, peace seems more, he says, like a fragile interval between conflicts. So we need to use diplomacy, we need to use forgiveness, and AI can be deployed in the service of that, but it shouldn't be deployed in the service of prosecution of war, which will only incentivize it, especially when, armaments stand to be purchased. Okay, he'll also talk about the laws or autonomous weapon systems. There needs to be a clarification of human agency, because if war just gets quicker and impersonal, then it's going to get muddier and muddier and lethaler and lethaler. That's not a word. Okay, here we'll talk a little bit about multilateralism, that we're not looking towards a common future. We're regressing as a global community in this regard. And then he'll alert us to the fact that political realism is not the way forward, in the sense that we can't settle for like merely armed equilibrium and deterrence. It's false to say that war is inevitable, because spirit of resignation is inimical to the gospel. So he says, peace is not naive. We need to recognize here an opportunity for personal and collective conversion. And I'll talk about the need to disarm words, build peace through justice, adopt the perspective of victims, cultivate a healthy realism, and revive dialogue and multilateralism. The conclusion, he talks about the incarnation. Christ took our flesh, our weak, our wounded human flesh. He lived our human life, and he did so in efficacious solidarity with us. I'll talk about the mystical body, how we're meant to be incorporated in an organic union in which we each play our role. And then he'll talk about the Blessed Virgin Mary as giving us a model of prayer. So then he comes back to that original image of the building site, right? So we're to be architects in the construction site of our time, building up walls for Jerusalem, not walls of war, but walls of peace, or which ensure a lasting peace in the holy city, which is bound ultimately for God Most High. Let's say a word about how this document might be received. Obviously, people are going to be out there saying all manner of things, can't see into the future, but these are some things that I anticipate might cause a little chatter. As to the first chapter, I think that some folks might say that it's too deferent to the world's competence, whereas other folks might say that it's too critical of the world's competence. This is a constant tension in the church's description of her relationship to the world, specifically the modern and contemporary world. And I think you see a tone shift in the last 100 years where it's a little more stormy and then it's a little more lighthearted. This document in general is pretty stormy, but it starts on a high note, or it starts on a kind of positive note as a way by which to say, hey, let's host a dialogue. So we'll see how it goes. And then with respect to the second chapter, here in enunciating the principles of Catholic social teaching, this idea of foundations and principles, I haven't encountered that previously in the tradition. Also, I made mention of the fact that when you list 4, you typically go dignity of the human person, common good, subsidiarity, and solidarity. Here, we had that list of 6 broken up into foundations and then to principles. But instead of participation, which got mentioned apropos of subsidiarity, you had social justice. When people hear social justice, obviously they think lots of things. In the church's tradition, social justice really gets used beginning in the 1960s, and it kind of stands in for, at first, like our care for the common good, general justice, but then that gets taken up by solidarity. And then it comes to mean something like distributive justice. If you don't care about those things, or at least those definitions and concepts, don't worry. Fact of the matter is, I think that this is just a different way of setting forward the perennial teaching, but sometimes, people are like, bah, things have changed. So don't worry. With respect to chapter 3, here's one of my favorite words. There are going to be some people who say it's obscurantist, which is to say it's against progress or it's against learning. So this insistence throughout the document that we should judge, that we should regulate, that we should use well the technology into which we initiate subsequent generations. I think there are going to be people who react strongly to that because they're like, brah, there's no way. Which maybe, as far as realpolitik goes, that's an accurate assessment of what's going to unfold. But this document is trying to hold off that type of cynicism at arm's length and inform people with a gospel message. Also, when it says there's got to be checks on the market, there are a lot of people out there who say you just have to let the market ride because it's the best way in which to increase wealth for all. But the church has always insisted, and you see this in St. John Paul II, especially Laborum Exertion, Solicitudo Rei Socialis, Centesimus Annus, that the market doesn't take into account all of the pertinent factors. And so we have to account for that. With respect to chapter 4, the mention of de-skilling, some people are going to be probably critical about that because it's like every time you develop a new technology, there's a kind of necessary de-skilling. So when we went from an oral culture to a written culture, obviously we lost some capacity for memory, but nevertheless, we got all these cool things that you get with a written culture, like civilization. So people just say, de-skilling is a necessary feature of progress. But I think here the document's insistence on principles for discernment is helpful. Like, what are we losing? What are we gaining? Are we refining human agency, or are we in fact replacing human agency? With respect to the 5th, my suspicion is that some people are going to be critical of the way in which the document talks about the UN. So it talks about the UN in largely laudatory terms throughout the document. People are going to be like, wait, doesn't the UN support abortion? which it definitely does. And there's one point at which the document acknowledges that the UN is not necessarily on the rightest of right paths, but its tone tends to be largely encouraging. I think it's a recognition that here's an effort to come together in a globalized economy or in a globalized world, and it's an effort. Obviously, it's a very imperfect effort. So I think we should take it in that spirit. Okay, so let's bop to my 3 favorite things now from the document. The thing I think is interesting is that he's got a citation from Pope Francis, which we've seen a few times in Francis's pontificate, namely that time is greater than space. I love this one. So you read in Lumen Fidei, time is always much greater than space. Space hardens processes, whereas time propels towards the future and encourages us to go forward in hope. And a lot of people were like, what does this mean? So Pope Francis added it into Evangelii Gaudium and to Laudato Si. There you have more in the way of explanation, but check it out. It's back, baby. It is decidedly back in Magnificat Humanitas. There we have mentioned what matters most is not occupying positions of power or defending cultural strongholds, but initiating good processes and enabling them to mature. In this way, the truth of the gospel is not imposed from above, but grows over time within the concrete interweaving of lives, communities, and cultures. Basic idea there is like time gives us scope to progress as a community. And so it doesn't entail so much power playing or dialectical back and forthing. Rather, it's the type of thing for which we as a human community need to be patient and persevering. So party on. Time is greater than space. Next, you might be asking yourself, how many times was Thomas Aquinas cited? If you read the document about the Blessed Virgin Mary Mater Populi Fidelis, it was a doctrinal note from the DDF. He was cited there like 29 times. So I was asking myself, are all subsequent publications from the Holy See going to be 1/6 St. Thomas Aquinas? Here, he's only cited twice. I know you're disappointed. I am. But alas, we're going to have to console ourselves with the recognition that the point of a papal encyclical is not citing St. Thomas Aquinas.
Shots fired. Shots fired to the semiotics bros. Oh no, you can't hear me. Oh, you can't hear me. Okay. If you can hear me, that's great. Okay, good. Shots fired at the semiotics bros. I said it. You heard it. I love all of my friends in the group chat, in the hive mind right now. It is just, it is a delight. And I've got stashed in my back pocket, I think, a weave to end all weaves to how we can get from the encyclical to the Ortho Bro Wars of 2026. I'm glad Luke's here. I'm glad Lance is here. I'm glad Marcher is here. I'm glad JD is here. We've got a good quorum. We even had Jacob earlier. We've got a real good quorum of diversity within different church traditions. So much so... I won't even say so much so. I'm loving this, folks. I'm loving this. Did you know you can have this much fun without even dropping a StreamYard link? Can you believe it? Can you believe it, folks? This beat is very simple, by the way. It's not a good beat so far. But I think this guy nails it, right? Like... And this is a priest. Marcher's not a priest yet. But it kind of confirms some of my suspicions that some of the more that this was not going to be like fully championed by the entire Catholic Church in all of its instantiations. At some point in the encyclical, it uses the phrase ecclesiology of X. And I can't remember, it wasn't practices, but it was like not ecclesiology, an ecology of X. And I can't remember, but every time I heard that, I thought, oh, did Vervaeke? Is Pope Leo familiar with Vervaeke? Because that would be freaking sick, and you know it would. That'd be awesome. You know, we would have that connection to the Pope, other than us all having been in Chicago for a period of time. Okay, so here's the weave. And I think I'll end what that priest had to say, in the priest reacts to Pope Leo's AI encyclical. Thank you, Mr. Gregory Pine. I guess before I exit out, I should probably put that link in the description. That would probably be a good thing to do. First vid. In the meantime, if you've been enjoying the show as much as I have, feel free to drop even a couple dollars in the Ko-Fi. It helps, folks. I really appreciate it. It helps me pay my bills. It helps me to buy groceries. And I'll give you guys the same promise I give my dad whenever he gives me money. And that is, I will not spend your money on booze, and I will not spend your money on tattoos. And that is my solemn vow. No booze, no tattoos. And if that's good enough for my dad, that should be good enough for you. That's what I think. Anyway, StreamYard's doing the thing where it doesn't let me edit my description. But I'll leave that up. Okay, so we're done with that topic. Let me put my shades back on. Yeah. If you donate for the express purposes of me getting a tattoo or buying some booze, I could follow through with that. Oh, also, welcome to all the people I haven't mentioned. Lance, Chris Howard. I guess I did mention Lance. President Foxman, the OG, Commander-in-Chief. Yon God, thank you for being here. A barbarian is someone outside of Greece. Classic Yon God comment. What the hell is he even referring to? Nobody knows. Did he think that we all didn't know that? Somewhat insulting. That was a very Rob-esque comment. A very Rob-esque comment from Yon God. Just noting that. Okay. So we've got the encyclical. We've got these... we've got these kind of political spectrums through which it's very difficult to not read something like the encyclical through. And I want to go back to some comments because I think that'll help me jog my memory as to what the connection points for my weave will be. That's what it was. So Pentecost. Phlebas rightly mentions that Pentecost is the New Testament fulfillment or the reversal of the curse, the curing of the curse of Babel is Pentecost, the speaking of in tongues in Acts. And this was this scene where the gospel was preached by Peter. Famously, he says to all of these folks gathered from all the nations, he says, Jesus Christ, whom you crucified. And the irony or the absurdity should not be lost on us that these folks were not in Jerusalem when Jesus was crucified. If they had been in Jerusalem, there'd be no reason for them to be there in Pentecost kind of thing. They're small. I'm from a tourist city, right? So this is like, Pentecost is kind of like the St. Patrick's Day of Jerusalem. You can quote me on that. And so Peter preaches the gospel. He says, Jesus Christ, whom you crucified, but was raised by the power of the Father to testify to his righteousness, and that the sacrifice had been paid in full, and that when he said it is finished, it was finished, because he cannot lie. Peter lays that out to the folks, and many repent and believe. And then the Spirit descends, and this is the big key for Pentecost, right? That the tongues of fire descend, and this kind of cross-language, cultural communication is able to take place. And how is that connected to the Ortho-Bro Wars? I think I still need to go back up and look at the comments that made me think of this, because I didn't stick the weave. I promised to come up with an excellent weave, and I did not stick the weave I did not stick the weave. Encyclical to Babel to Pentecost. Pentecost to, what was it? Let's see. Maybe I need to hit some branding. Maybe it had to do with Kierkegaard. Who knows? I've only been doing this for an hour and a half. This is a pretty good... I don't even know if Luke has monologued for an hour and a half, even with videos. Also, just got the text that my parents are in North Carolina. So if you hear something different in my voice, it's because my parents are geographically close. Let's see. You know what? I could just do like a clean reset. I could just hit some branding and then come back and we could start the conversation on the Ortho Bro Wars of 2026. What do we think? If you're for a clean reset, just say so in the comments. They were accused of being drunks. Yes. Speak softly and carry a big tongue. A tongue of fire. Yeah, what is a tongue of fire? I mean, that's a really good question. What a tongue of fire is. I remember the weave. I just needed a moment of silence. A moment of silence for my CTE as I try to, recompose the strands of the weave. But it's basically that you can see where the various receptions to the Pope's encyclical might make it difficult for one for whom is on the outside looking in of granting to our Catholic brothers the presupposition that the Roman Catholic Church is the capital O, one capital T, true capital C church. And so, unfortunately, I do wish to tiptoe through the tulips. I do wish to kind of proceed through these quite unecumenical waters. And while doing that, I intend to be, as much as my ability and as much as the Lord will grant me to try to be a non-biased third-party observer in all of these wars. I do have my favorite team. I do think that the Big Eva Protestant Church is the one true church. I can't even say that without laughing. All high church, Catholic, Orthodox, and even some Anglicans I'll throw in there. They need to repent and they need to return to First Baptist or First Methodist that is closest to the home that God preordained for them to live in. Yeah. Reformed Baptists are the one true church, and that's the only option, folks. Now, that was the weave, was ecclesial anxiety. Not everyone in my comments, in my hive mind right now has ecclesial anxiety, and I'm grateful for that. I don't want to provoke it in people who feel themselves firmly planted in the one true church. But I can't think of a better weave. I can't think of a better transitionary concept to get into the Ortho Bro Wars of 2026 than this ecclesial anxiety brought upon the individual stressed time and time again by Pope Leo's encyclical. When that human individual who is granted so much dignity by the encyclical comes upon this concept of the one true church, what should he or she do? And so that brings us to the Ortho Bro Wars of 2026. And with that, I will hit some branding. I did stick the weave. If you enjoyed that weave, hit that Ko-Fi link. It's in the description. Maybe I'll post it in the comments too. In the meantime, I'll catch up on some comments. But let's see. I like this branding.
Tell me that you've lived here your whole life. No, not yet.
All right. Mark, welcome. I didn't realize that I missed this comment. Let's take a look, folks. The pseudo-Catholic. I have, you know what, I just remembered, Mark. You messaged me like 6 months ago asking how I was doing. And I was doing really, really bad. And I did not respond because I couldn't think of a good way to tell you I was doing really, really bad. And I also just didn't want to talk to anybody. So I hope you will take this as my official apology and request for amends on not responding to you back then. I just remembered that. But anyway, let's see what Mark D. Parker has to say. It doesn't have to be the OTC. I don't know what the OTC is. Oh, the One True Church. I remember now because I did say capital. Okay. It's an historical, and I hate when Americans say an historical. It's a historical fact that all present Christian churches exist today as a result of rebellion and or conflict with the Roman Catholic Church at one time in the past. Okay. Just logically speaking, that seems like it could either be a great argument for why the Catholic Church is the one true church, or why the Catholic Church is always wrong about something. It's not a good track record to have been constantly in battle your whole existence. Oh, thank you, Lance. Thank you, Lance, sir. Very helpful. Very helpful. I do need to. I need to catch up on Mark's pseudo-Catholic journey, because I like Catholics, and I think that maybe Mark as a Catholic might be better than Mark as a Zen Buddhist Church of Christ deacon, or whatever your official title was. That could be true. But yeah, earlier in the stream, I said, when I was thinking with the Catholics, I would try to use the language of the church. But again, the capital TOC, to me, is less of an issue with the Catholic Church because they have an official document on that, namely Vatican II, which is, I think, quite agreeable and to me as an individual. But what does that have to do with it? I'm just the referee in the wilderness, right? Yeah, that is the question, right, Mark? Is the constantly in battle or the constantly challenged by the world? But because I think you could make a good argument that the Protestants are the one constantly challenged by the world. But yeah, that's what I mean. It's a matter of perspective, perhaps. But I want to pivot from the attention being on the Catholics, for good or for ill, and point it towards the topic of PVK's homeroom this morning. The Ortho Bro Wars of 2026. And so I'm just gonna tell you guys the story like I would explain it to my parents who are going to soon be coming into town, and I'm going to get dinner with them. So I do have to keep an eye on the clock here. And I should drop the link soon too. If I don't drop the link in 5 to 10 minutes, somebody remind me in the comments. Because I am interested in what you guys have to say about it. I'm also interested in stopping the monologue and letting someone else carry the show for a while. So this is the heart of the drama, as it seems to me. So there's this Protestant, kind of broadly evangelical, probably Reformed if I had to guess, kind of Reformed Baptist if I had to guess really hard, apologist. And his first name is Avery. He goes by the moniker God Logic. And he has been rising in the ranks of kind of this one particular scene of Christian apologetics that are also kind of aimed towards Islam, right? And so if you were alive and tapped in the early 2000s, or the 20 teens, you'll be familiar with like William Lane Craig and many of those stuff. And so these guys are kind of like inheritors of the Hugh Ross and William Lane Craig mantles, and they specifically debate and work to defend Christianity in relationship to Islam. And so some of the time they're defending Christianity, a lot of the time they're attacking Islam, right? And so I know there's a lot of people in the corner that don't think you should ever attack someone else's opinion. You should just defend your own. And I'm kind of partial to that as a technique, but I don't think it rises to the level of like ought and should. And so different people are going to appreciate this kind of content in different ways. So this guy, Avery, God Logic, he debates this Muhammad Habib or whatever his name is. I don't remember his name. He's the guy that was on with tried to get Peterson to go Islam. He tried to convert it. Jordan Peterson to Islam. Peterson and Peugeot were had to double team this Muhammad Hijab guy. His last name is Hijab. That's funny. A man with the name of female clothing. That's kind of funny to me. Anyway, it kind of attacks his. I guess that's maybe a low blow to his his masculinity or whatever. But I'm an egalitarian, so onward. So Avery and this Muhammad Hijab guy, they have one of these like Christian YouTube style debates. It's a live stream, and basically God Logic cooks him on, as far as debates go, it was pretty embarrassing for Muhammad Hijab. And it's not like that's the majority opinion on the debate. And so in the fallout of that, I mean, we could talk about that as an isolated incident, but I guess it's only important insofar as it relates to the Ortho Bro Wars of 2026. So in the aftermath of God Logic kind of embarrassing this representative of the Dawa crew on YouTube debate, there then began this bubbling up of a quarrel, of an animosity. And there was a little bit of a meme war exchanged. Yon God says God Logic is his favorite black guy. That's cool, I guess. I think I could probably list 10 black guys I like more than God Logic, and that makes me more woke than Yon God. I'm embarrassed, and I'll return to silence after this live stream, I suppose. Anyway, despite Mark C. still wanting to make this about the Catholics, you missed the whole first hour and a half, Mark. It was all Catholic. It was all Catholic. It was all for you. It was all pro-Catholic. Now I'm talking about the Ortho Bro Wars. Anyway, in the fallout of this debate, Andrew Wilson and Jay Dyer and their crew, I don't know the specifics necessarily. I didn't really care to look up the specifics, actually, because this is so far. I'm doing this thing my wife hates where I spend like 30 minutes on the intro of a story that was going to last like 5 minutes. I think the context is important. Forgive me. And that's to my wife. I'm going to clip that and send it to her. So God Logic and these Dawa guys have this debate. In the aftermath of the debate, this Ortho Bro contingency of Andrew Wilson, Jay Dyer, and the like kind of let these evangelical apologists know that as far as they're concerned, they're not helping Muslims to become Christian, they're helping Muslims to become heretics, and it would be better if they just did not do any. And I'm remembering the details. So basically, after God Logic won the debate, Andrew Wilson, it was Jay Dyer. But after the Muhammad Hajib guy lost the debate, one of his Dawa buddies accused Avery / God Logic of being a grifter. And the reason he gave for being a grifter was because of his ecumenicism, essentially. Because he wouldn't have the quote-unquote one true church debate, he was essentially a grifter because he didn't care about the specifics of the one true church. He wasn't enough of a rigorous. He was too winsome to be taken seriously. He's a grifter. That's what they said. And so they miss, obviously, the elements, and this is not the time or the place. Eventually, hopefully, I can, if it's the Lord's will, I can give a good defense of kind of evangelical Protestantism in all of these matters. But that's not what I'm trying to do today. I'm just trying to, again, give a lay of the land of what actually happened with a kind of eye towards some of the meta dynamics involved. The dynamics and the characterizations of those dynamics in an overarching way that would constitute validly the use of the label meta. Okay. Where was I in the story? So one of these Dawa guys accuses Avery of grifting. And who agrees with these Muslims against Yon God's favorite black person? But Jay Dyer himself, the ortho bro in chief, the head patriarch of the online Orthodox Church, Jay Dyer, retweets or quote tweets in agreement that yes, these evangelical grifters are worse than these honest Islamic dialoguers, you could say. And so one particular friend of Avery / God Logic, who happens to be a kind of, he was diagnosed as a psychopath at some point. I don't have time to get into the full rando history of David Wood. Honestly, PVK, if you watch this, get David Wood in a daggone rando stat ASAP, please. So anyway, this guy David Wood, he's friends with Avery. He's a famous apologist contra Islamists. And he kind of sticks up for his boy. And he's like, no, obviously it's better that someone be Christian even if they're Protestant than they're Muslim. And the fact that you guys are willing to help the Muslims to lie about my friend means that we're now at odds. And so that's what sparks this whole controversy, of which PVK kind of touches on briefly. Now, what's happening in parallel, and this is a completely other phenomenon, is Father What's-His-Face going on Girls Gone Bible. And so this has just come to my awareness today. But there's, I knew about the podcast Girls Gone Bible. Obviously not for me. I'm not a girl, even though I do love the Bible. But, I'm not interested in what girls have to say about the Bible. Are you kidding me? Why would I care what a lady has to say about the Holy Scriptures? Come on. No, I'm just kidding. I come out as an extreme misogynist egalitarian. I think women are equal to men, but I do not want to hear what they have to say about the Bible. And that's just, that's just me, So anyway, this Girls Gone Bible podcast is apparently quite controversial because of the title. It kind of it makes you remember Girls Gone Wild, the pornography company, and so yes, it's a little bit. I could see. I don't think if they didn't think there was going to be controversy with the title of their podcast, they probably weren't thinking hard enough about it. And this is a good point, Mark. What do these women think about the Bible? But yeah, so these, as far as I know, these godly women, just trying to have their women's Bible study, which I worked at a church. I know PVK can back me up on this. The stuff that they talk about at a women's only Bible study is sometimes it would embarrass all of you, especially you older men. And I'm looking at you, Mark. I'm looking at you, Chris, and I'm looking at you, Lance. Even though Mark and Chris are probably a little older than Lance. Lance, you're old too now, buddy. Sorry, hate to tell you. You're great with memes. You're great with gifs, but you're old too. And I don't know if you old guys have been around a ladies' Bible study lately, but whoo-wee, they talk about stuff I wouldn't want to talk about with ladies. They get down and dirty, and that's before we even talk about whatever happens every couple of weeks or so, every month or so. So I see the Girls Gone Bible podcast name, and I stay away. But so this is what PVK thinks is the big coming out moment for the orthos. And then when I'm watching Homeroom, I see that, oh no, he actually understands. He's seen this David Wood thing happen too, because David Wood, this friend of Avery, he decides, well, if the ortho bros are going to attack my friend Avery, and they think that we're hurting and not helping in terms of bringing people to the gospel, then I guess we need to have the One True Church debate. And so David Wood was this kind of as far as ecclesiological controversies go, he was kind of this sola scriptura dummy. Right? He thought that he could just read the Bible and that it was clear and that whichever denomination kind of lined up with the Bible, he could go to. And now he's being told that no, you can't interpret the Bible for yourself. You have to have these ecclesial authorities to tell you how to interpret the Bible. And so these are hot button issues, folks, and this is why I haven't dropped the link yet, because I know you people. I know you people. I know how you would come on and how you would try to wrangle this live stream into being about your pet topic and why your tradition is the best. But that's why I'm saying I'm third party anti-bias referee here. And here's the dynamics that I don't think are being adequately accounted for. I think that some of the ortho bros have forgotten that the sola scriptura evangelicals have an army of autistic intellectuals with high IQs that have been waiting their whole life to debate these things. And that's where we're at. So, the Ortho Bro Wars of 2026 commence. And so now I think the only thing to do would be to put on a video of Ruslan explaining these Ortho Bro Wars from the lens of a somewhat charismatic Big Eva. He did release a video 22 hours ago called The Downfall of Jay Dyer and the Ortho Bros. There's a video he did earlier that I thought might have been a better summary of the situation. Do we want to do the summary, or do we want to jump into this 20-minute, and I'll play it on 1.5 speed, The Downfall of Jay Dyer and the Ortho Bros. Give me a quick poll in the comments. Let me know. Probably first one I see I'll do. But I'm going to play this video and drop the link, and as soon as people are on, we can start talking about anything, everything. I've got about reasonably probably 30 to 45 minutes before I need to call it a day. I love the intensity with which pseudo-Catholic is coming against they can't even win a debate against the nuns. I don't know who they is, but what a slam. Market has hotter lines than these guys. And I'll translate. I am deep in the water like a whale with tenderness. Oh, sardine in an abyss. Who brought you here, sardine? Oh, our poet in the crowds. Challenge me is forbidden. The one I sing for a week needs painkillers from you. I'm a wall catching fire, and the nights are gathering. I promise you he won't be confused even if he walks on dough. Men of determination, we called our pride in our people. We sang our songs to satisfy all those present. We sang for the song for the sake of the Famahi people. To Abu al something as a gift to Abu al Amin. And all I'll say is if either the Ortho Bros or the Catholics presented their arguments in the form of a diss track, I would be much more amenable to both of their cases. Much more amenable. As far as I know, only the Protestants and the Palestinians have the skill, the technique, and the ability to present their case in the form of hip-hop rap. Chris Howard, ever the pluralist. This needs some mariachi backing. I like that. All right, I haven't seen anybody say anything, so I'm going to choose the video I have not seen yet, and we are going to watch this on 1.5, the downfall of Jay Dyer and the Ortho Bros.
In a second. Jay Dyer saw this video, which anyone that knows anything about online culture, online stuff will notice that this is a play on Eminem's diss song against MGK, same exact album cover. Jay Dyer interpreted this as a threat towards his life. Okay, so this is Psycho Prots apparently want me unalive. All right, and posted this to his community tab when it had eight views, and then had his own community repeatedly point out to him that this is the use of Eminem's album cover reference. No one actually is threatening death on you, buddy. This is just a play on the Eminem album cover. And the cringe part about all of this is Jay Dyer is not just thinking that this is a threat on his life. He's also demanding his audience to go and mass report this video, which I think is against YouTube terms of service, but maybe I'm wrong. But this is utterly disgusting. Why are you demanding people to report this video? It's not that big of a deal. This is a video of him begging for super chats. Not the worst thing in the world. Now, the ironic part about this is in all of his accusations of me, quote unquote, being a grifter, that then extended to folks like God Logic being a grifter, and basically anyone that isn't Eastern Orthodox that's doing anything online with regarding Christian apologetics or Christian content in general is a grifter, according to Jay Dyer, except the only problem is videos surfaced of him basically begging for money from his audience for a good 16 minutes. Now, I'm not going to look at all of this, but I think, again, there's a crux here with the Ortho Bro saga, with the need for absolute certainty on everything, with a debate me or you're gay, bro, culture, and now there's a ton of folks that want to debate this dude. Unfortunately,
sorry, that just reminded me of something. Which Ruslan didn't do a good job here of describing this, but one of the things that David Wood has done a good job of constantly reminding his audience for, and everyone of, is they want to define this ortho bro phenomenon very clearly and they want to separate the ortho bro phenomenon from the Orthodox Church, right? And I think that that is a really important act of charity that we should all do, is separate these quote-unquote ortho bros from the Orthodox Church, right? That may seem dumb to some people, or that might seem incredibly wise to other people, but to me it's just kind of a very straightforward, let's remember that. And Ruslan doesn't really hit it so far in this video, but he said other places that his beef is not with orthodoxy, but it's with these Jay Dyer, Andrew Wilson, Jim Bob type guys. And so there's oftentimes, and I think this is something, I'm not going to out who it was, but somebody brought up in a group chat earlier, which was the importance of remembering the fruit of the Spirit with all of this stuff, right? And we can exhibit the fruit of the Spirit even if the content that we're viewing is not the fruit of the Spirit. Now, if your whole diet of content is Jay Dyer, Andrew Wilson stuff, I think it's going to be very difficult for you to cultivate the fruit of the Spirit, the virtues required for holiness and godliness. I think that that's just going to be a fact. So I know some of you sinful people out there are just going to be obsessed with this kind of controversy and drama, but I'm trying to communicate it in a way that gives the people who need to know, a broad overview of the situation, and maybe we can think and talk about some of the implications as soon as I drop this link here.
Unfortunately, they all have smaller followings than him, so he refuses to debate any of them or call into any of their streams. But this is a fascinating look of what happens when you completely lose the plot and become someone that is absolutely confused on your own identity. Jay doesn't know if he wants to be a comedian. Jay doesn't know if he wants to be a cringecore artist. He doesn't know if he wants to be an academic. He doesn't know who he is. And so that's what leads to this sort of stuff. So this video was put together by Chris LaSala, who's the same guy that actually put together the videos of me from 6 or 7 years ago doing content for Christian rappers, Christian aspiring rappers on how to become full-time artists. This is the same person that put that together. Jay, unfortunately, freaked out and literally thought this was a threat against him, bringing more attention to the entire debacle. So let's take a look at some of this video. This has over 100,000 views on X now. And yeah, let's see what Jay is talking about.
This thing here is my Bitcoin wallet, dog. Send the Bitcoins here and then we can up the quality of everything.
Bitcoin Church. We got Bitcoin Church spotted in full effect. All right. So if I got business church, which by the way, I don't have a church that I'm a pastor at. I've never claimed to be a pastor. I'm not clergy. I am just a guy that's been publicly on the internet for almost 20 years now. I'm going, about almost 20 years, been consistently putting stuff up from initially Christian hip hop music. And so Jay Dyer has Bitcoin Church if you want to put money in his Bitcoin wallet. The accusation against me is that I'm a quote unquote grifter. The issue is if I'm a grifter and God Logic's a grifter and David Wood's a grifter, that word loses all meaning when it comes back full circle and it has you grifting for an entire stream begging people for money to improve the quality of your setup.
Everybody's being a damn stingy as hell. Are you not glad I see we have a cheap audience tonight. That's okay. You guys don't have to use super chats, but
calling your audience that's sitting there devoting their life to you, watching you live cheap is crazy work, by the way. This is insane work. And this is a guy that, you know, his claim to fame is being the guy that was writing for Alex Jones and a quote unquote comedian, which again, crux of this is this dude is confused on who he wants to be. Is he a comedian? Is he an academic? Is he a debater? He doesn't know who he is. And I think this is why you get these ridiculous, confused looks of, hey, they're trying to unalive me, not understanding that this is a play on your own allegations against me and others. And you've been doing the same thing consistently for years.
Here's young Don, who converted to this nonsense rabbi synagogue. Deconversion, I went to an Orthodox church for several months.
And at the end of my deconversion, I went to an Orthodox church for several months.
Yeah, I experienced that later in my journey when I went to an Orthodox church.
Young Don was someone that refused to go to church the entire time he was around anybody. And the only time he actually did go to church was when he went to an Orthodox church. So this idea that the Protestant grift is proven.
I'm trying to
because
figure
Young
out how to
Don
post the
was
link.
a
It's not letting me.
Ignores the fact that he was an Eastern Orthodox or attempting to be an Eastern Orthodox, whatever you call him, inquirer for the last several months of his Christian journey. So if anything, you guys finished the job off if we're going to go based on that logic, which Don is an interesting personality in his own right. He has all sorts of issues with regards to how he's navigated his online journey. But people deconverting and reconverting and having issues with their faith, crisis, all these sorts of things, it's so disingenuous to put that on the lap of any one group, which I would not put that on the lap of Eastern Orthodoxy as a whole.
I went to an Eastern Orthodox church, and that's where I stayed until I completely deconverted.
Proof positive right there.
I don't really care about how many followers I have. I need those metrics to an extent for the credibility of them, but I'm more thinking, what is my bank account going to look like in the next 2 to 3 weeks?
so from a metric standpoint, if what really mattered was the gospel, wouldn't you care about the following over the money?
Not if you're on YouTube, which, by the way, every single person on YouTube shouldn't be chasing numbers and vanity metrics. That's the point of that video. If we're actually moving folks towards making a living for themselves, which is the content I was doing, was speaking to Christian rappers and Christian aspiring YouTubers on how to make a living for yourself. Why? Because we've seen so many folks in those communities particularly absolutely burn out, absolutely lose themselves in the process, and no sort of vision or plan. And then when you get a little bit of pop and you get a little motion, you're this guy begging for super chats to upgrade your computer and upgrade your latency issues, which is hilarious because this has been the ongoing ask for super chats forever. Let's improve the quality. Let's improve the microphone. When he was with me, we were talking about improving his quality. That was over a year ago. At some point, when is the quality going to get improved, my guy? It's not that complicated, which to me is evidence this dude is just really a boomer masquerading as a comedian entertainer.
700 people in here and we've had 2 super chats. So is everybody just like stingy all of a sudden? Nobody wants to support the show anymore? What's going on? I mean, I guess we'll just have to make every podcast half and half if we're not going to get any more super chats. From a metric standpoint, if what really mattered was the gospel, wouldn't you care about the following over the money?
So what's wrong with being a hypocrite?
I figured I should start collecting my money, so he sends $1. Bro, just keep $1. If you got a super chat, I'll just keep it, man. Oh, dude, I can't even think. And you ask me like life questions. And you send me $1. Dude, send me a Bitcoin, I'll answer your question.
Send me a Bitcoin and I'll answer your question. Oh my gosh. Isn't a Bitcoin like $70,000 right now or something crazy?
Appreciate that. But, guys, I'm not going to read the $1 super chat because people start just putting long $1 questions. So no, you got to get $5 to $10 at least.
If there come unto your assembly a man with a gold ring and goodly apparel, and there come in also a poor man bowing at
man.
Bunch of cheapos. It's all right. I'll still hook.
Calling your audience cheapos is crazy work because they can't send you super chats. This is insane work, man.
The true free thinker up tonight. Even though we had a bunch of cheapos.
That's basically admitting, yo, I've been in this grift game for almost a decade, son.
Where's my superchargers at? We got some support for all this madness today.
Thank you, Ups. Thank you very much.
Funny thing about this is asking folks to support you as a YouTube creator, there's nothing wrong with it. Shaming your audience and having Bitcoin church and demanding them to support you is absolutely.
Well. If it isn't 2 of my absolute favorites, we've got, folks, Mark D. Parker, Lance, and that means we can pop the VNA bubble. I saw Lance first, so Lance, welcome. What say you, sir? And then right after you, we'll let Mark say his piece. But Lance, welcome. Mark, welcome.
Welcome back to the World Wide Web, McMo. Excited you're back.
My sabbatical's over. Back to the grind.
I love it. Makes me excited. You bring me out of. I've also been hiding deep in the nether worlds, but you brought me out. Hey, Mark.
It feels like 2024 all over again. Lance is here, McBo is here, and I'm the stranger. Did that not communicate?
Well, unlike 2024, you're a pseudo Catholic now. And
Yeah, what's up with this? Is that's not a thing?
speaking of Catholics, somebody has joined claiming to be Marcher. If that is you, Marcher, I need you to prove yourself by giving a sentence-long defense in the private chat before I let you on. I know you don't want to show me your face, and even if you showed me your face, I wouldn't recognize it. So, use your brain and intellect and prove that you're you, and I'll let you on. But until then, we'll see. Any thoughts, men, on the encyclical or the Ortho Bro Wars of 2026?
I'll defer to Lance. He came first.
No, I think I also watched Homeroom today, and the thing is that I think everyone will relate to this. Like, what happens out here on the internet is nothing like what happens when you go down and show up at your local church. You know what I mean? Like, there's this whole phenomenon that happens out there, and there absolutely is. I've been to two mainly in Kansas City and then two down here in Houston. But the Orthodox churches that I show up with, those priests are pretty excited that new people are showing up. And their opinion is, I don't care how they get here. Isn't the church for sinners? And we'll worry about that. And, we'll take care of it if they show up. There is, though, one church I went to a couple times, and they weren't real excited that even I was there. And there are some people that do not like the fact that new people are showing up. You know what I mean? And I think you can probably relate to that if you ever been into, I was part of a kind of a smaller church, and then some new people started showing up, and they were like, wait a minute, like, we sit in that pew, and the parking lot's full. What are we doing here? Like, well, I don't like this. And so there's a lot of that kind of goes on. But yeah, I just think what's going on out there, like online, like if you actually show up at church, it's just a wholly different thing, man.
Yeah, I think that's been my impression. And I can't remember. I mean, I don't know if I said it in the stream or if I said it to somebody in private earlier, but I think it's quite possible, that whoever the exemplar is for your kind of tradition, your particular tradition online, it's very rare that you get someone that's like exactly who you wish was doing it. Right. And so that's funny to me because that also seems to be pertinent to the encyclical question, which, Mark, have you read the encyclical? What did you think? This is your first papal encyclical as a pseudo-Catholic. What were your thoughts?
No, I haven't read it. I've only glanced at some of the reporting about it, so my knowledge is close to zero. But what I've seen reported just seems very much like the modern Catholic Church. Their position is moderate and well-read and sensible and trying to thread an impossible needle. That's seems to be what they specialize in the last 60 years, which I think they've done a good job at. I think in many ways the Catholic Church has never been more culturally relevant as far as Christian churches go. Elon Musk actually cares what the Catholic Church thinks. Presidents and vice presidents have visited the Pope, and the current one gets upset, with what he says, and that's a good thing. That's good that the church is somehow maintaining its moral authority and its independence without sounding shrill. And you can't say that about the pastor of Hills, Brian Houston at Hillsong, or Greg Laurie at Harvest, or I mean, everyone else's stock seems to be declining. The papacy continues to grow, even if it loses some cachet with the trads. The papacy, since John Paul II, has never been stronger, and at least in the last 500 years. Say,
What makes you say that? What characterizes in your mind the kind of strength of the papacy?
it's actually has moral authority that in a that people beyond the faith actually pay attention to, even if they don't, follow every word. They care, they care. They're impressed. I think, I was watching video of Leo blessing children, handicapped children. It was just thousands of them. It's like, it's exhausting. I can't imagine that kind of lifestyle. I'd be exhausted after 10.
You mean Pope Leo or the handicapped people?
Well, they probably exhausted themselves too. With mothers, it was used mostly parents. It was parents and their children, and it was just Leo going through a line of these people, blessing them and taking little gifts from them, and the pats, the hugs, all that kind of stuff. It's and it doesn't get, I don't think it's perceived by the public in the same way a politician doing something like that would be, right? Politician will do it for a few snapshots for 10 minutes and move on to the next photo op. And Leo's doing it in a sacramental way, which is pretty impressive. I mean, you only see this sometimes with some in India with some of their more sacred or more what do you call them? Their form of saints, right? You've got some living saints there that perform these sorts of actions for hours on end as a kind of meditation and such. It's impressive. It's good to see it. I don't know.
All
I
right.
mean, would I stand in line to do it? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't stand in line for much.
I think you've stood in line for much, much less. To be honest, Mark, I'm gonna have to
I'll
call
stand
you
in
out on
line for a
that.
good burrito. I'll stand in line for a good burrito. For a
All right.
blessing from the Pope.
In
Probably
the
not.
meantime, we have the distinguished man himself, Marcher. Marcher, I want to hear your takes. Have you read the encyclical? What were your? I thought it was very humanist. I thought that there was he calls out the individual, the democracy. What are your thoughts on the encyclical? And you have to give me your thoughts on the encyclical before I will let you talk about the Orthobro Wars, which I know you're chomping at the bit to talk about.
Well, first, actually, I just want to thank you for letting me join your great stream on this auspicious day. I'm just hanging out, really. I'm highly caffeinated and taking the day off from work, just hanging out. I didn't read the encyclical, and I don't have plans on reading it anytime soon. So you probably know more about it than I do.
Was that
Sorry.
So you say you don't have plans on reading it? Why don't you have plans on reading? That sounds like you actually have plans to not read it.
No plans to read it anytime soon. I'm still swamped. I have like a fat stack of books on symbolism. I'm essentially attempting what amounts to a PhD dissertation on the topic. So I'm like way too into this to.
Okay, no need to brag. No need to brag.
He's living to take down Jonathan Pajot.
You're done, JP. Yeah, watch your 6 Peugeot.
Dude, I mean,
your mind, can you like
read it
tell?
and then you can tell me about it. That would be great.
Well, yeah, I listened to an AI read the encyclical to me, so I feel like I did a kind of meta reading of it, which was appropriate. But what is your understanding of like the importance of papal encyclicals? My understanding is they're not quite ex cathedra, but they're still quite important, and they kind of tell you a lot about the Pope. Am I wrong in that, or what's your view on kind of the importance of encyclicals in general?
Well, they're written for the Universal Catholic Church, specifically the hierarchy to read and understand the agenda that the Holy See wishes to put forward. Typically, what's contained in those encyclicals is disseminated through the clerics, which is why it's not like it's never been a huge tradition to just read them. You certainly can, and you probably can benefit from them, but you're not a bad Catholic if you just completely ignore them.
Is it accurate and kind of generally understood that these are somewhat a kind of post-industrialism and industrial age thing for the church? Because the way that priest said it earlier, it sounded like this kind of started with the other Pope Leo, kind of reacting to or responding to Marxism, and are encyclicals and Catholic social doctrine that kind of tied together, or is there a history of encyclicals that are not kind of so social doctrine-y in their themes?
Oh, there are a lot of magisterial documents like that up and down church history, but I think what people will note is that the frequency of them is picked up since the printing press, which will come as no surprise, I think. But yeah, you have documents such as these that come from the Holy See itself, or there's different organs of the Curia, like the CDF. They put out apostolic exhortations or doctrinal corrections. There's all kinds. Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate you answering my questions. If you'll do us the honor, if Lance or Mark have a question about Catholicism in regards to encyclicals, actually, well, or I mean, I guess you haven't read it yet. So, is it surprising to you to hear Marcher? I was going to offer Lance and Mark the opportunity to ask a question, but I'm going to ask you one more question, and then you can give us your thoughts. You said earlier in the comments that you think that the ortho bro phenomenon is much more characteristic of orthodoxy as a whole than the prots are even claiming. And so I want to hear that take. But before that take, I guess my question would be something like, in terms of encyclicals, you said that it's primarily for the church hierarchy. And so is this considered a kind of work of the magisterium? And is it not, like, obviously they understand that many lay people are going to read and be interested in the encyclical, but is its thrust kind of not towards the church at large in terms of the laity and the clergy, or is it, in your mind, specifically
Yeah, its
for the
primary
clergy?
audience, its audience is primarily the brother bishops. Primarily.
Okay.
But
so
yeah.
that's interesting to me, because it seemed like, especially because of the kind of clarity with which it wished to, and kind of like Mark was saying, kind of walk the fine line and give the world kudos for its competencies, and while still kind of holding fast and claiming straightforwardly the competencies of the church. That seems like a kind of interesting, perhaps, innovation, in the sense that there may be elements of this encyclical that are unique in the ways in which it kind of addresses the world as such, rather than the clergy. But with that, I give you the floor to make your case that the Jay Dyers and Andrew Wilsons of the world are far more characteristic of orthodoxy.
I just wanted to hang out. I didn't want to get all pugilistic very, very suddenly. Must we?
Well, he wants to. Look at the topics for the day. The
Is this
encyclical
how
and the
you're gonna get
Orthobro
your
Wars
views
of
and your clicks?
2026. He's trying to make money up in here. How can he grift if there's not a good Orthobro debate? Come on.
I mean, I'm not necessarily intending to cast aspersion so much as just to be descriptive. One of the first controversies that I got involved in on Bridges of Meaning that was, to my surprise, actually offended some people. Because when I look at ortho bro behavior, it really at its core, it stems from how they understand themselves in relation to what they see as the West. There's this phenomenon called the paradigm of opposition, where a lot of their own self-understanding comes in contrast to so-called Western traditions, teachings, etc. And so there's inherently already a kind of conflict thesis. There's already a kind of trajectory of opposition that manifests itself in diverse ways. I mean, you go to the Ancient Faith Radio Network and you'll see Father Stephen DeYoung kind of open up his entire presentation by peddling kind of these rather cheap, uninformed smears on Augustine or teachings on original sin that they understand to be true. No one really actually has recourse to refer to like things like the catechism or magisterial documents on these things. They just have their kind of like line on it. You can go to any like Orthodox Church website and you'll immediately get started on a screed against, well, original sin in the West means this, but for us it means this. And so you even like talk to the average Orthodox priest in person, and this is how they'll talk to you. So this is what I meant. The paradigm of opposition is just baked into the cake. And I wasn't necessarily intending to say that's in a pugilistic way, just kind of descriptive.
All right, I hear you. And unfortunately, I forgot JD was waiting patiently in the background. And it sounds like both Marcher and Sherry agree that we've gotten a little too deep and we need to draw it back into the chill stream. And thank you for reminding us, Sherry, that we need to chill. This was meant to be a kind of, and I don't think you overstepped this, Marcher, but we did seem to get into maybe deeper waters than is necessary for a McMo stream. But I do want to welcome JD. I want to say, JD, what have you got to say? Did you read the encyclical? Do you have thoughts on the Ortho Bro Wars? I feel not embarrassed. I feel like the Ortho Bro Wars are a sensitive topic. I feel like I've seen them coming, and Sherry saying I myself am contributing to the lack of chill by my voice giving out. Probably due to my bad habits and just the fact that I haven't
going on.
And I did monologue for an hour and a half, so forgive my vocal cords. I'm so sorry, Sherry. But JD, welcome, sir. Do you have thoughts on the Ortho Bro Wars of 2026 and or the encyclical on AI?
Well, hello, and I think this is my first time on one of your streams, so
welcome.
Cool. And I haven't read the encyclical, but I did watch that like presentation early in the morning from the Vatican where he had like the different people give speeches, and he gave a speech, and I saw some other things about it, and everything about it so far pretty much is exactly what I expected. And I think everything I've heard is pretty reasonable, and it strikes me as sort of what I've been saying this whole time about the AI thing. Whether you're for it or against it, it's not going away. So it's better to try to steer it in as good a direction as we can, away from the bad direction as best as we can, because just trying to stop it is a futile task. So embrace what it can be and try to guard against what it shouldn't be. Like he said, disarm AI is probably a good way to do it. And he was sort of being very disarming toward AI. And And I have no idea about this ortho war thing. I didn't even know it was a thing. So you guys are gonna have to tell me about it.
Okay, well, as far as the Ortho Bro Wars of 2026 goes, we have an expert, a subject expert in Luke Thompson, coming in hot, eating something like Andrew of Southern California fame. I'm sure that that's non-GMO. Probably bought it at like a Whole Foods instead of a Costco because he's not only more attractive than us, he's also more ethical than us. It is the man, the myth, the legend, Luke Thompson himself, whom I love.
It's potato salad, and I made it.
With mayonnaise or vinegar? That matters a lot.
Mayonnaise, but also lemon juice, not vinegar. Come on.
Okay, lemon juice I can get down with. I'm not a big mayo fan, but you're a Midwest boy, so I'll allow it. Any thoughts on the papal encyclical and or the Ortho Bro Wars of 2026?
Yeah, I have not followed a ton of the papal encyclical, and the Ortho Bro Wars. I mean, to me, it's all very. The culture war to me is Protestant. And so, like, anytime you're wanting to argue about stuff online, divorced from context, divorced from relationship, facts and logic, I don't have a lot of interest in it. I mean, it's kind of interesting to talk about, but I think a lot of it, you're just going to fan the flame. And I appreciate that you said that you divorce that phenomenon from the Orthodox Church proper, but I don't know. Like those, I've never been I've not followed any of those guys, like Wilson or Jay Dyer. It's not my vibe.
What you're talking about is making me remember one of the dynamics that I was hoping to kind of draw out in this stream, which was I think that there's almost like the Bush neologism. There's a misunderestimation going on between the two parties. I think that there's a stereotype of Protestantism as being primarily characterized as rebellious and schismatic that I think really sets up the Ortho Bros poorly to deal with the kind of autistic, high IQ, sola scriptura enjoyers, if you catch my drift. And so there's a little bit of a kind of, I can't help but pull for my big Eva brothers in a way because of that misunderstanding and that kind of stereotyping. And I kind of want the Ortho Bros to see like, no, there's really good arguments for all of these things, and that the kind of that the mission that each individual is given by God is not necessarily step by step in line with what you might think the capital One True Church says. And I would probably put that in different ways depending on if I was talking to different people. And I understand that these are very choppy waters for all of us involved. But there is something about the way the medium shapes the message and the way that these kind of like that online apologetics or even like apologetics in the public sphere kind of tweak and shape the way that these folks interact with the truth, you could say. And I can't help but in this moment think of our dear fearless leader, President Foxman, and his kind of reminder in his recent PVK rando of the lolcow phenomenon, where you've got these kind of very perhaps narcissistic, but also very broken people who are kind of stuck in this loop of audience capture and trolls who pull out of them the most self-destructive and hurtful aspects of themselves. And so in the spirit of the encyclical, I do think that like there is a connection between the Ortho Bro Wars of 2026 and this idea of the dignity of the human. And it goes right along with your personalism, Luke, and I think it goes right along with a kind of Maritain humanism, Catholic humanism. And so I do think that there is a lot that we can agree on here in terms of our desire to cling to both grace and truth, like our Savior and like our Lord. But with that, I want to open the floor perhaps to Lance or Mark, who have done a really good job, thank you very much, of being on screen for a long time and not interjecting or interrupting. But I do kind of want to just open the floor to open conversation. But let's keep it chill, folks. And then I probably am going to have to shut it down in about 20 minutes.
Yeah, my thinking, like this whole thing, like the pro bros versus the ortho bros, this is just the Spider-Man meme, right? Like, so I was a Wesleyan freewheeler going to seminary with a bunch of young, restless, and reformed, John Piper, Tim Keller, Westminster Confession guys, right? So, and all in good fun, we liked each other, but obviously, I always had troubles with Calvinistic, very reformed theology stuff, and we were talking about it in good faith. But I mean, like the pro bros are the same as the ortho bros. The same people are debating and doing the stuff. It's just the Spider-Man meme, right? And if you're Protestant, you don't like the ortho bros. If you're ortho bros, you don't like the Protestant. But it's the same thing. And that's why with Peugeot or PVK, everybody says go to church. Like Luke's there, like. Sure, I've run into guys who've like watched Dyer or something like those sorts of folks. I've run into guys like that at my churches. But when you're actually at church and you're at the services and you meet in the coffee hour and stuff like that, like it's just this totally different thing. Like the same way if you were going to some sort of Reformed Baptist church, and most of the people that are in the pews, they have no idea that there are these young, restless, and Reformed guys arguing like crazy against everyone else on the internet. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like I think sometimes we need to remind ourselves, even though I always say we're an online community, like in terms of I would just say Marcher and stuff in terms like that, like it's just not real world.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, I think I would be.
I want to bring the Spider-Man meme and just say, hey, like there's certain good folks that like the ortho autist and the Protestant autist like to argue about all that stuff, and they like it, so okay, they can do their thing. I just ignore.
I do think that there is a danger in kind of, well, it may still be a wise strategy, Lance, to kind of disregard all of this as a little bit of, autistic word cell, autist on autist violence. I do hear that as a wise kind of counsel, but I can't help but disagree because I do think that it's slightly different. Like, and the way I would put it, to get, I would say that there was kind of a spirit that was characteristic of what the Reformed folks called the cage stage Calvinists, right? That there is, I do agree that there is a kind of a similarity between the, and the term something like cage stage Orthodox, I think would, even in just saying it, I think that all of us can kind of imagine exactly the type of person who I'm talking about. At the same time, I do still feel that it's not, as you said, that it. I don't think that it's just autist on autist violence, which you didn't say. I said, which because you said something much more charitable. But
it's the people who want to argue,
right?
This is Luke's whole deal. It's the facts and logic guys and the people that get into that. I think.
Yeah. Exactly. And for me, I hear you on that. And then this is one of the funny things that I think most people don't understand about the corner at large. And it actually is from a meme that I sent to it. Maybe, I don't remember who I sent it to. It was on Instagram. But it was basically like this dude who was making the joke that, like, if you get around your friends and all you talk about is stuff that you agree with, that's kind of gay. Like, if you just get around with your friends and, like, want to agree with one another. And so I do kind of want to put that forward as, like, yes, I do think that there's something about the nature of the medium of these kind of like debate me bro style Christian YouTube channels that it does kind of trigger my disgust sensitivity for sure. At the same time, I don't agree that like the stuff that they're talking about is unimportant, right? And I think that there are really helpful, clear distinctives and even just like as if they were my friends, I can hear how kind of an Orthodox person would think through something and how a Protestant person might respond. And so I don't want anyone who enjoys kind of apologetics, quote unquote, content to feel necessarily overjudged. While also I want to agree with you that there is a sense in which you can know them by their fruit, and the fruit of apologetics is kind of few and far between. Now,
can I ask a question?
Go ahead, JD.
Only because I it's possible I'm not the only one with this dumb question, so I'm going to put it out there. What are they arguing about?
Oh, okay. So the Ortho-Bro Wars of 2026 are fundamentally about the question of what constitutes the one true church. And I have joked multiple times in this stream of it being capital T, capital O, capital C, one true church. Got it. And there was an argument that Proddies could make against the Catholic bros that they were capital OT seeing us. And but then Vatican II came out, and the Proddies have had to back off of their Catholic hate because it was pretty fair and reasonable towards us. But because this particular strand and some Orthodox
Catholics
people
mostly just OTC each other.
yeah. Well, there's lots of different types of Catholics. I think that the diversity of the Catholic Church is one of its strong points, even if it's not often claimed as a strong point by many of its members. But it's interesting to me just as a kind of, again, I'm in the wilderness, right? And the only thing I can boast about is the manna I receive. But this stuff is important to me because it's kind of like understanding the times. And there is, and it's the same reason why I think PVK wanted to do his homeroom video this morning. But there is something to be said about all of this ecclesial anxiety and the types of conversations that so easily turn into knockdown, drag-out debates, not necessarily being edifying to the body. And I think I can say that confidently because I have spoken to members of each one true church, and they all find this stuff not edifying to the body. And then here I am in the wilderness finding all of this debate me bro culture super edifying because of the kind of what I called earlier, the meta dynamics of the arguments, the ways in which the diversity of the one true church is brought out, the ways in which the conflicting claims of people who take the kind of existential stance of belonging to the one true church seem to sometimes evidently contradict. And all of this is interesting to me because I am super stoked and interested in the invisible body of believers kind of edifying one another and showing that they are Christians by their love. So that would be my kind of like defense of this whole conversation, and I want to give some space for either Mark D. Parker or Marcher to kind of take the lead here. And Mark, you put your camera on, which I don't think Marcher will ever do, and so that will always give you the. Mark, you're up.
Okay. Well, so many things I want to talk to you about. Unfortunately, how we use the proper use of the indefinite article a and we'll have to wait.
Yeah, don't use it with H words. Don't do that.
Actually, check it out. It's quite proper.
No, I know it's proper,
like
but it's European, Mark. It's European, Mark. It's European. I'm an American.
Do you find it edifying because you are outside? Because everybody's puzzled by the pseudo-Catholic thing with me, and I've tried to explain it, but there's a podcast with Tom Wright. I don't know, or was it an interview? Maybe it was an interview at some big fancy place with wood paneling, and he said that the scandal of the church is not its division, but that nobody cares. And to me, that's kind of what's behind my pseudo-Catholicism is, will I ever take the Eucharist? Will I ever be confirmed? I'm putting it now. I've lowered it from a coin flip to more like a 90-10 no. I probably won't convert to Catholicism in the long run. But I am going to stick with the study of it and try to reconcile my Christian faith to it for all the reasons I've already stated in the chat, briefly, but in other places. But I
Mark,
think I just wondering if my question for you is if you find this this conflict edifying because it enables your alienation.
I would say no. I do not find it edifying because it enables my alienation. I it's possible that those two things are connected, but no, I think I more so find it edifying because for the reasons of just kind of understanding the times that we live in. Like I said, that's my main reason for finding it edifying is just a kind of a topic that came up earlier with the encyclical, the idea of stewarding the truth, right? And so I find these debates there's a way to kind of steward the truth in these debates, and I like that turn of phrase. I like that concept. But JD or Luke, I would say the floor is yours unless Marcher has something to say.
Really, really quick. Mark, you might want to. I'm curious if you're familiar with Simone Weil, but you might check out like her book "Waiting for God" or something like that, because she was kind of like lived her whole life like that. She was enamored with Catholicism. She kind of stayed connected, really close to Catholicism, and but she kind of refused to ever join officially. So you might,
I'm familiar. I've actually got a book of hers that I'm going through now.
Okay.
So.
I love that the real mystery for Mark is what the hell does the word pseudo mean? That's what the people are dying to know, Mark. What is the actual definition of pseudo?
Isn't it something that's kind of half-ass?
Half-ass Catholic would have been a much better. You need to change. You need to trademark that today, Mark. What are you doing? Half-ass Catholic is gold.
Well, I want to keep it clean for the kiddos. I don't want their mothers to clutch their pearls because they're following a guy named Half-ass. So that could get me banned.
So I guess what I would say, and then I'll probably go, is, although thanks for doing this, it's I always enjoy the conversations, except when it gets to be in a certain tone. Like when people get angry and tribal, I don't like it anymore. I think you've let go of, and it doesn't mean there's probably not a place for certain kinds of anger, but I think it's the whole be angry and do not sin. It takes a lot of wisdom. And so I don't think it's as simple. I'm not a restorationist in that, like, if people could just go back to the one true church, whether that be the Catholic Church or the Orthodox Church or the Oriental Orthodox Church or the Unitarian Church, as Sam would say, is, which that's the real truth that we've moved away from with all these, Nicene accretions. I just don't think, because of the personal dynamic of people, part of it is the meaning of your own understanding, and everyone must be fully convinced in their own minds. And so you're not going to be able to shove. It's not only like a square peg in a round hole. It's like every human being, the meaning of your understanding is every human being is fundamentally non-fungible, and meaning is personal. And you're not going to, and if you think, I think all restorationists are ultimately like foundationalist rationalists that are trying to like shove everybody into the same size hole, and it's never going to work. And I don't think that it means, and it's denying your sincerity culture, your familial, your cultural, your national inheritance. You can't just like individualistically like, oh, we all become Catholic, we're all baptized, and then all of a sudden like that will just fix the world. I think it's I don't know. It's utopian, which is the no place.
Well, where's the peace? I mean, there is a line called "Blessed are the peacemakers," and I don't think that trying to understand what it is to be Christian in its fullest sense is necessarily a vain project, a utopian project.
No, but I think the difference is, Mark, is like that's what we're doing. Like you go
Sure.
do whatever you want to do. I'm going to go to the Orthodox Church because I obviously think that's right. When I
Right.
start forcing my opinions on you, like I think it's just I don't know what world you're living in, besides the rationalist world.
All right. Well said. Well said. We've got the pseudo-Catholic, the personalist ortho. We've got well, okay. Well, Luke's gone now, but I was just going to say thank you everyone for making this call-in radio show a pleasure to listen to. I hope that my monologuing was not overly offensive to anyone. But it is now the time of the show where we give last thoughts. I will not have a finalized beat to give you because I've just been too enraptured and, I've been locked in with the conversation. Like the Jews for Nehemiah, I've been locked in on this conversation and doing my part to make it go well. But I would now like to open the floor. In order of appearance, we will go Lance, then Mark D. Parker, then Marcher, then we will close with J.D. Pickens' shoes. Lance, final word, sir.
Well, I think the reason why this bothers people so much is we talk about the arguments and it's I say Spider-Man memes, so on and so forth. But people realize that it's existential. If the Orthodox are right and you're Protestant or whatever, a whole bunch of what you base your entire being around is technically incorrect, and vice versa, right? So if the Orthos and the Catholics are wrong, and the whatever faction of Protestantism you're on, I mean, people, I think really why it bothers people at a really deep level is if you're honest with yourself, it's existential, right? It potentially could be, right, in certain aspects. So that's why it invokes so much passion, even if that's conscious or subconscious. And so I think when we do that, and the fact of the matter is, well, everyone believes they're part of the one true church, or you wouldn't be in the church you're at, and you wouldn't be in the denomination you are, or whatever that is, right? So everyone makes the claim whether they come out and say it or not, right? Whether it's a tangible church or an invisible church or whatever, you're making a claim. And so it matters to people. That's why we like to talk about this stuff and think about this stuff, because individually we all just have to, at the end of the day, all I can do is stand where I'm going to stand and walk in the direction I'm going to walk, in the direction that I believe is the path that's best for me. That's all I can do, right? And that's all we can do.
Yep. Be like everyone on stream right now. Believe that you go to the one true church and donate to my Ko-Fi. Yeah, you heard it here first, folks. Everybody that's on the screen right now is donating to my Ko-Fi at one time or the other. But I really appreciate you saying that, Lance. Thank you for joining me today. I'm now going to remove you from the stage. Man, this has been a fun one. I wish I could have done one of the classic 4 to 6 hour McMo streams with all of you folks. It's really been great. Mark D. Parker, the serial killer, the pseudo-Catholic. What say you, sir?
Good to see you back. Well, and never apologize for brushing me off. I'm glad that you survived your travails and are here to talk with us today. I mean that sincerely. I don't know. I think so much of this this discussion it's very American. It's very the Orthobro thing, the Orthobro Wars, all that sort of thing. I think what it reflects is the power and impact of American fundamentalism on American Christianity wherever it goes. So I think we've got to work through it, because and because it is, I think in the modern age, it's ultimately unsustainable, but it shows up wherever. And this is, you know, we just got to work through that demon, and at some point we will. But it's one that's been with us now since the early. Well, it's been part of the American form of Christianity since before the founding. So it's all fundamentalism all the way down.
Well, that sounds pretty sad and depressing to me, so I'm not going to agree with it. I think that it's all American exceptionalism all the way down. No,
well,
no,
it's itself a form of fundamentalism.
No, I think well said, Mark. I appreciate you being here with me today, and I do still feel bad about blowing you off a couple months ago because I was just very, very sad, didn't want to talk to you. But I will also say this whole thing is very interesting to me because right around the time of the Great Awakening, this kind of American exceptionalism, the manifest destiny idea in America, you have the ideas of existentialism forming in Europe. And that, in my understanding, connects very smoothly with a kind of Catholicism, or the connections can be made. The smoothness may be up for debate. Connections can be made to Marcher and his favorite philosopher, as far as I know, Jacques Maritain, who is responsible for a type of Catholic scholastic humanism. Are you still here? You're still here. Okay. I was going to ask you for your final thoughts and hoping that you could in some ways give us a kind of what does Maritain's humanism mean in respect to all of this? Or maybe better said, Maritain's personalism. Or maybe you're not even here, and I'm just speaking to myself. I mean, we heard you laugh. Are you going to remain silent on your main man Maritain? Give us the pitch, bro.
Am I still in here?
Yes, you're here. We're live. Don't turn on your camera.
Wait, how am I still in here?
Oh my goodness, what a way to... Well, do you have any thoughts on... Give us the Maritain pitch, dude. Oh goodness, what a way to end. Okay, I'm just gonna remove Marcher. Thank you anyway. We'll have to do our own research on Maritain, I guess. JD, pick his choose, my brother.
What's good? What's good, man?
Did you get the hi-hats figured out?
Oh, you saw that comment. I think so. I think I found that frequency that was irking me, and I lowered it.
All right. Well, that's all it takes. You know, it's a pretty straightforward. You find the frequency, you lower the volume. That's mixing, folks. That's professional audio mixing for you. What are your final thoughts on everything that we did in the last 2.5 hours or so?
Well, I want to say Luke's final word really resonated with pretty much everything I was thinking about the topic. He really said it better than I could have said it. And then Lance really kind of cut right to the nub of why, though it's hard for people to just let go and let live a little bit because of the existential stakes around it, which I have a problem with those existential stakes. And that's my whole other thing that I could go into. Mark brought up the American fundamentalism, which I think is quite accurate in some ways. But I'm not quite as pessimistic perhaps as the tone that perhaps that was, but I think he has a point. I would say that when it comes to the one true church, I'm at a point where I don't think such a thing exists. And I think if the one true church exists, it's in the conscience of each and every one of us. And there is a creator that has walked alongside every human being for the million years of our existence, long before long before altar rails or whatever else my Catholic brethren are arguing about today. And so I try to take that kind of zoomed out look at the creator of the universe. And so I don't know if that makes me Catholic anymore, but like all Catholics, I'm like a cafe Catholic. So I would say to Mark, if he's just not sure if he can ever assent to every last thing about Catholicism, that makes him a perfect Catholic.
You know, so I hear you. What made your whole great spiel there, I mean, it was good. It was you did good. But Marger was just popping in and out the whole time backstage.
That's hilarious.
And I don't know if he was like, I'm going to add him to the stage now. All right. Do you realize you're still here, Marcher? Did you come back to kind of trash talk what your Catholic brother was doing? Or do you not know how to work the phone in your pocket?
I don't know how I'm still in StreamYard, but yeah, now I'm aware I'm in StreamYard. How are you?
Okay. Do you want to give us our final words and perhaps a pitch for Maritain?
Well, I guess I did want to comment and counter signal Luke.
I knew you would!
I guess I would be remiss if I didn't do that, right?
All right, but wait, before you do that, thank you, JD. Well said, well done. I'm going to give the floor to Marcher now. Yeah, you should just send me some beats. All right, Marcher, you have the floor.
Thanks. A fruitful discussion could be had, I think, in comparing and contrasting the ways in which Christianity and, say, something like Islam evangelizes. Wherever you go, you see Islam make its foreign cultures, its host cultures, more and more like itself, more and more Arabic. To its architecture, it even enforces the way you read the Quran. Whereas Christianity believes very strongly in the semini verbi, the words, the seeds of the word having been spread, and now the gospel watering those seeds in a way that's fitting to the culture and the gospel alike. I think it's a false choice what Luke and JD are presenting, and it's a question of whether or not the Lord, who incarnated as man, wished for his church to enjoy a common society. A hierarchical unity in which his sacraments, his teaching, and his prophetic word can be visibly propounded. Otherwise, what you have instead is a kind of plurality in which those things kind of get lost in relativism. The sacraments, for instance, what are they? How are they to be administered? What are their conditions for validity? If I go in Africa and ask, should I be rebaptized if I want to join the Orthodox Church? Or if I go to Europe, getting diverse answers, the true kind of teaching that Christ intends kind of gets lost in the mix. Could only ever redound to just opinion. So ironically, actually, the state of affairs that JD and Luke wish to have for the church could only ever result in rationalism, wherein these things have to be decided through some kind of magisteria of opinion, some consensus of human opinion. So actually, the common society which Christ chose to found his church in affords the kinds of things that I think they would laudably want, like communion and relation, true goods, things that could only ever be sought within a society, as opposed to kind of like this pluralistic state of affairs. Anyway, I guess I would just counter signal that Tom and Elijah scolded me for not doing it. But again, all I wanted to do today was just hang out.
You got bullied. You got bullied into being a polemicist. We'll blame it on the caffeine, and I'll remove dear brother Marcher. Sometimes it's your own people, folks. Sometimes it's your own people. No, I really appreciate everybody coming on the stream today. I really appreciate the diversity of opinions. I'm so grateful that I can call all of you my friend. It's fun. It's fun to disagree, folks. that's all I'm trying to say. Is it's fun to hear what people think about things. It's okay that we don't agree, but it is very important that we remember our Lord, the way, the truth, and the life. So searching for truth together, very good. Arguing about the way, yeah, sounds about right. And we're living our lives, folks. We're living our lives. And I hope that you've enjoyed the stream today. I know some people are gonna think that we didn't do enough. We didn't settle it. We didn't get down to brass tacks. We didn't let the people argue. And we've got people like Nico accusing me of feeding off the conflict. Quite the opposite, my dearest Nico. I only like conflict that I start. I don't want to get the ortho bros and the trad casts angry at the big Eva apologists. I'm merely here to report the facts. But I'm sure that this has been a great stream for everyone. It was really fun for me. I think that perhaps, and I give you permission to do this, maybe somebody like a Luke, maybe somebody like a Nico, maybe even somebody like a Marcher could take some of the conversation that's happened here. And if Elijah, if you're out there watching, I am kind of bummed that you would reach, that you're kind of, that you and Tom I forgive because I've never met Tom in person, but Elijah, you should just reach out to me, bro. If you're watching the McMo stream, let me know, dude. You know I need that. Donate to the Ko-Fi, Elijah. Come on, what are you doing, bro? Anyway, thank you everyone so much for hanging out. I hope I've made you feel virtually not alone. By the way, I should get the proper. I should end with the proper settings here. And now it's over. We've done 3 hours. We've gotten you through the siesta portion of your day. And enjoy, unless you're in the UK or in Europe or something, enjoy your dinner. Hopefully your drive home from work is nice. I recommend listening to some music. And you can just rest knowing that there are nerds on the internet who are really trying their hardest to think well through these things and to love the Lord with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength, not forgetting the mind. And it's been a very fun chill stream today. I think we did it. I think we remained chill. I don't think anybody got their feelings hurt. I think there were disagreements, but that's also good. So, once again, thank you, everyone. And if the Spirit leads, yes, you did. If the Spirit leads, feel free to hit that Ko-Fi link. Thank you to, let me see if I can remember them all. I think we had Ups. I think we had Nidalate, both donating with their real names. Thank you very much. We had someone who was, I think, just trying to get me to halfway paid. And I think that there was someone earlier maybe who was anonymous who I forgot to mention. But regardless of all of that, thank you so much. Yep, and of course, Free Rillian gets here. Better late than never. Go back and watch it. You'll like it. Brett, I've seen you for a while. I don't think I ever mentioned you, but thank you. And with that, folks, we'll end it. And just a little tidbit, because I don't want to stop talking, apparently. This last song is the Our Father. It's how our Lord taught us to pray. So I invite you to just go ahead and say the Lord's Prayer while this song is playing. And I'll do it with you, and we can all pray to the Lord, and we can ask that His will be done. Amen.
As we always the blessed hope and the coming of our Savior Jesus Christ.